So you're a busy boy, huh? Are
Bro.
you doing
crazy.
8 videos a day, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I've increased my output because I'm in the process of like moving and stuff like that. Like we got a house and just like between that and taxes and just life, proposing to my girlfriend, like just all this shit.
Wait,
All this.
when did you propose?
No, I haven't yet. I have the ring. Once we move into the new house, then I'll pop the question.
Wait, so she knows you're gonna ask her something?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
My fiance knew that I was gonna ask too, and I was still nervous as fuck because I wanted it to be like really special for her. So I just felt a ton of pressure to make it as best as I could. I decided to fuck with her a little bit. So like we did a like a Airbnb trip to Big Bear that weekend, and as we were going downstairs to go to the car, I got down on one knee, and I started like tying my shoes, and then we got to the Airbnb, and I got down on one knee. I said, could you look behind and see if I have any fuzz on my? So I fucked with her like a couple times, did a couple fake outs, and then proposed to her next to the lake, and it worked out
Brave.
pretty well.
You're brave. You're lucky she didn't knife you. I mean, I don't know your fiance. Maybe she doesn't have that violent streak in her. But I grew up with four sisters, and one of the things that I knew very early on, long before they ever were proposed to or got married, but they had a conception of it, which is that you don't fuck with a girl about like a fake out proposal. Like I have a pretty wide sense of humor, but I would not dare. So kudos to you, man. You're brave.
No, she laughed. It went over well, I would say.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Or that's what she wants you to believe, and she's going to punish you later on down the road. You will suffer the consequences later on.
We'll see. Doubt it.
The other two are coming. Econoboy and Pisco will be here, but Pisco is predictably late. He says he has, he was like having dinner with family, and it's like, okay, come on, man. I imagine your family doesn't want to spend time with you. Econoboy was with Econo wife, so we're just waiting on them. But dude, fucking crazy day. So that's like, yeah, I mean, I've been increasing my output again, not quite election level, but getting close to it. And also there's just a lot to talk about too. And it's been like it's been a promising first quarter as far as like left-leaning and liberal content creators actually making headway in the space. So definitely want to keep up that momentum as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to cover. I feel like something that's getting buried today is the fact that Trump signed an executive order directing the DOJ to investigate someone.
Two people, Chris
Has
Krebs
this ever...
and Miles Taylor. I am unaware, and that's where Pisco will come in handy. But
Yeah.
I know I am totally unaware, and it's really an embarrassment. Do you want like this, or do you want like this while we're waiting?
Doesn't matter. Either one. I can scoot over. Whatever.
That's fine. It's really embarrassing that we have such a nakedly authoritarian president. But you know how I feel on this. As far as I'm concerned, okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Then next time, God willing, we have a Democratic president, they should be fucking signing executive orders left, right, and center, for basically every MAGA Republican in the country. I mean, it's bullshit. The president shouldn't have that much day-to-day involvement with the Justice Department. But it's also like, I don't know. It's one of those things like, kind of like with the Trump judges, like with all the judges like kicking Trump in the nuts. I like the fact that he's getting checked by at least one of the branches, but you actually haven't seen me do a lot of like cheerleading, because all of my concerns that I had about the power of the judiciary, they actually still remain. I agree with them from time to time, but I just have on principle misgivings about unchecked judicial authority, especially when they're not paired with checks in turn. So that's why I have such beef with the Supreme Court. It's like, if the Supreme Court's going to be able to check the president, then the Supreme Court, as far as I'm concerned, better be fucking perfect. No ethics issues. They better be IRS audited, forensically every goddamn year. No ethics violations or conflicts of interest, all that shit. If you're going to have that much power where you can give the president of the United States the finger, or the Congress, then you should basically be unimpeachable. And so, kind of like with the Justice Department, they technically report to the president, but the conception of like the post-Nixon notion
Right.
of the Justice Department is that the president gives like broad policy goals and stays the fuck out of day-to-day law enforcement. And here Trump
Right.
is violating that once again, saying you will investigate this specific person. It's fucked up.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's no statutes on the books sort of declaring independence for the Justice Department, but there have been longstanding norms since you mentioned post-Nixon. They implemented reforms within the executive and the DOJ to prevent this exact scenario from playing out, where you have a president direct the DOJ to investigate rivals. I'm actually kind of shocked. Like I didn't, I figured he would just pick up the phone and call like Kash Patel or Pam Bondi and be like, "Hey, I want you to look into this." I didn't think he would do it this brazenly.
Brazenly?
Yeah, he didn't do this during his first term.
No, but I think that's part of it. See, I think if Trump has one talent, in my opinion, and that is understanding what motivates his base. He's unparalleled. I think he recognizes that there's a genuine appetite among millions of MAGA Republicans that they don't just want, the deep state investigated. They want to know that the deep state is being investigated. They want Trump to make a show and a spectacle of it, and he gets that. And that's why I think he did what he did, because you're right. A more cautious, circumspect person would just pick up the fucking phone or have the chief of staff. There would be ways to put plausible deniability in between Trump and that order. Instead, Trump is going, whole hog into it. And I think it's because he knows that MAGA is going to have a fucking raging boner at the notion of Krebs and Miles Taylor being investigated.
Well, it feels like a bit of a trial run, because how many people have honestly heard of Krebs and Taylor? Like, these are pretty, in terms of
niche names. It's not like Adam Schiff or Nancy Pelosi. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking like the top, 5% of politically engaged people are aware of who these people are. Miles, I think he testified at one of the impeachment hearings.
And he wrote a book. Real quick, somebody wrote this. They are the derp state. I love that. We should start calling the Trump administration the derp state. I'd never heard that before. I'm sorry, you were saying about Miles Taylor.
No, but I was just going to say this feels like a trial run. So you do it with like lower level people to see what kind of stink it causes. And if he sort of gets away with it without any pushback from Congress, then, I fully after the move today, I fully expect him to sign an executive order at some point directing the DOJ to investigate like Chuck Schumer or Adam Schiff or Hakeem Jeffries. Why would he stop here?
Exactly. Why wouldn't he? And I mean, that's why I mean, like, I don't know. The problem is not just the immediate, like, short term of dealing with that, but like, again, going into the future. Because again, full disclosure, I am half in the camp of almost like the anti-MAGA in the sense where there's part of me, there's like a Jekyll and Hyde schizophrenic part of me that really wants a Democratic version of it, or at least like, MAGA light, in the sense like I want the next Democratic president to be like, hey, listen, if you elect me, I am going to be investigating these people, and basically do the opposite of Merrick Garland. Give MAGA just a bit of a taste of their own medicine. I'm not saying you stage an insurrection. Like I think Biden did the right thing by observing the peaceful transfer of power and all that shit. I wish he would have been different in his posture. I wish he would have come out and gave a speech saying something to the effect of, everything I said about Donald Trump until this moment, I stand by. I think he is an authoritarian threat to democracy. I wish this election would not have gone the way it is. I have no respect for him as a person. I will not be kind to him, but I will observe the democratic norms, which is we have a peaceful transfer of power. He won the election fair and square, and I called not to congratulate him, because fuck him, but I called to assure him that I will not do to him what he did to me because he's morally inferior and I'm better than him. I would want Biden to make a speech like that. And so I'm hoping, if we manage to make it through these next 4 years, that the next Democratic candidate gives a little bit of that back, and signals that there will be public, high-profile James Comer fucking level investigations into Republicans at the congressional level and at the executive level as well. But I doubt we're going to get that.
Pisco, we got a question
for
you.
What up, boys? Yeah, hit me.
Has anyone, as far as you're aware, in the post-Nixon era, has any president directed their DOJ to investigate political rivals like this before?
Never heard
Joe
of
Biden.
it.
Wait, Pisco, do you know about this? The Krebs and Miles Taylor executive?
No. What happened?
Oh shit! Let me pull this stuff up. While
I was
you
at
all
a
are
dinner.
I know.
Some
with
breaking
family,
news.
I get it. Yeah.
This is a couple hours ago. Here, I can give you the it's
Yeah.
in the private chat there.
Oh crap!
Wait. Don't look. I'm gonna pull it
Want
up.
me to look? All right.
No. You're gonna react to it in real time. Dude, there's another one too. There's Krebs, and then there's the Taylor one. Do you have that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, it should be on the same account. Hold on.
All right. Can you all hear this?
Yep.
Yeah. It's pretty low.
Oh, turn it up.
Former head of CISA. This is a man who weaponized his position against free speech in the election context, in the context of COVID-19. This is it's a similar presidential memorandum to the one you just signed. It addresses his access to government, existing clearances he might have, and further instructs your Department of Justice, other aspects of your government, to investigate some of the malign acts that he participated in while he was still head of CISA.
So I don't know if you all heard that. Yeah.
Disgusting.
So
What
I guess
a craven piece of shit.
yeah, I think Krebs was head of cybersecurity within the administration or something like that. And
Trump appointed too.
right, and basically he came out after the 2020 election and said
Trump
that it was safe and secure, and he undermined the administration who at the time was saying that it was rigged and there was all this fraud. And I think his only quote unquote crime is just breaking with Trump on this. So
Yeah, and here's another
What a
one
decrepit
too.
piece of shit.
Well, hang on. Here's another one you got to react to, and just real quick because people said that they couldn't hear it. Unfortunately, this is I have it maxed out on the volume on my end. So again, for clarity, Trump just signed an executive order authorizing the investigation of a former Trump White House employee, Chris Krebs, who was the head of the DHS cybersecurity division, for the crime of saying during the Trump administration that the 2020 election was indeed free and fair and the most secure in American history. So here's another clip signing a similar EO about a different person.
Is there audio to it too?
The next presidential memorandum we have for you relates to Miles Taylor. You may recall that Miles Taylor served in the Department of Homeland Security during your previous administration. In his capacity with the Department of Homeland Security, he leaked classified information. He wrote a book under the pseudonym Anonymous, making outrageous claims both about your administration and about others in it. What this presidential memorandum is going to do, one, it's going to strip any active clearance that he has in light of his past activities involving classified information. It's also going to order the Department of Justice to investigate
Nazis.
his activities to see.
So again, for those who could not hear the audio, that was Trump signing an executive order to investigate Miles Taylor, who was also a DHS or DOD employee who turned against Trump.
Obviously the deportations to like an El Salvadoran prison are very bad, but to me, this represents a more significant shift towards authoritarianism.
100%.
Going after political rivals with the Justice Department is novel for Trump to do it like outwardly. And who knows what kind of behind the scenes conversations were had between Bill Barr and Trump during the first term. I just assumed that Trump asked him to investigate people. But he didn't sign a fucking executive order. And I was telling Josiah before you guys arrived, this feels like a trial run. This feels like he's going after sort of like lower level people first, and it's setting the stage to go after more prominent, maybe serving politicians currently. Pretty remarkable escalation. What do you guys think?
It's absolutely disgraceful. Like this treasonous windbag, not only is he politically interfering with declining absolutely necessary criminal investigations, for example, into Signalgate. So it's a situation where we have previous classified documents investigations into Trump, Biden, Pence, Hillary Clinton, David Petraeus, and he's interfering with the Department of Justice saying there shall be no investigation and covering up his cronies and their malfeasance in that context. Now he's explicitly ordering the Department of Justice to open criminal investigations into his political rivals, absolutely interfering with the Department of Justice. These guys are Nazis. Okay. This is impeachable. It's an abuse of power. He needs to be removed from office yesterday. And unfortunately, we live in a society in which the cult Republicans are all behind their dear leader. And there's just no chance that we'll get condemnations from anyone of authority in Congress from the Republican side.
All right, Pisco, I'm going to call you out a little bit here.
Yeah.
Does this not fully vindicate Joe Biden's decision to do the preemptive pardons?
No. I don't think that abuse of power, which I believe that that Joe Biden's usage of pardons in that context was an abuse of power for political purposes. I don't think that is a justified response to this. And even if you knew in advance. Yep.
You don't think the extraordinary
I'm standing by my
circumstances?
principles.
Well, let's talk. Well, actually, let's unpack that, because I've got a foot in both worlds here, because I don't. The pardon power is absolute, and I would agree that just wholesale without any. Let me put it to you like this: if President Biden pardoned his family members and his political allies simply to spare them any sort of investigation whatsoever, no matter how good faith, I would 100% agree it was corrupt. But I think to Hutch's point, we're talking about corrupt, partisanly politicized investigations. So what makes it corrupt of the president using his power to shield, to protect people from it? Could there be any use of the pardon power? Maybe a more targeted pardon that you would have tolerated and considered not corrupt? Or was his only recourse to leave his family and political allies vulnerable to Trump?
The problem was he was inherently conflicted with respect to his family members at a bare minimum. Okay.
Sure.
If there was a decision to be made about someone to be pardoned because of fear of future, corrupt abuse of power, I'm not even saying that argument is inherently illegitimate. But the decision should not have come from Joe Biden. He should have recused himself from that decision and outsourced it out to other individuals. There's no evidence that he did that. He's inherently conflicted. If Trump did something similar, we would call him out for it. Even if it were the case that Joe Biden were actually consciously convinced in that situation. I don't like that we're talking about Joe Biden in this context right now, but I'm just to be clear, I stand by my principles. Those pardons were wrong. They shouldn't have happened. But
I didn't mean to be standoffish. I'm just
no worries.
Conversation.
I don't take it personally at all. 100%.
Okay.
I think it's okay to bring it up. I'm just saying that the way in which we're potentially conflating, or I should say comparing these two actions, one which I think is wrong and corrupt. I've even said impeachable for Joe Biden. Compared to this, it's nothing. I mean, on the one hand, you have someone.
I don't know if it's. Well, I don't know if it's a like a one-to-one comparison. I'm using one to rationalize or justify the other.
He's saying that this legitimizes. It wasn't just bullshit. Like there was a legitimate fear. Like the fear that Biden had of Trump corruptly going after his family members and again the Democrats that he pardoned on the House January 6th Select Committee. It's this fully vindicates that fear, if not the decision itself. The fear you would concede is 100% legitimate, right?
The fear 100% is legitimate, and we knew that when that's what we were saying this entire time during this entire election. Donald Trump made just like with the tariffs, he was absolutely clear that he was going to go after his political rivals, and so no one can be surprised by this whatsoever. The question is, what do we gain from these pardons? We have gained some heartache or whatever for the Biden family, but you could argue that those cases would be much more stronger indications of pure political corruption. So now we have two people, Chris Krebs, whoever, that most of the country has never heard of. And so it kind of feels like almost like a weaker situation where you've pardoned preemptively pardoned all the famous people. And so I don't know what the country has gained from this action when Trump, he was going to find someone to go politically go after, and he might still even go after the Bidens based on his theory that the pardons are illegitimate. And so what have we gained by that action?
Convoy, what do you think? Because I don't want to box you out of this. Where are you on the situation and the colloquy that Hutch offered?
Yeah, I agree with Pisco. That I really don't think that the best way to address an issue like that is through preempt. I think the idea of a preemptive pardon all just inherently sounds
it's bullshit.
100%.
That's one of my major concerns with it is just the preemptive notion of it. Which
right.
I think President Ford was the first one to create a preemptive pardon for President Nixon. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I find that whole thing to be really crazy. I also take perhaps even a more radical view than Pisco. I know the Pisco, I think you've had debates with maybe Rob Norah where you had said something like, well, obviously, we can't just prosecute the president for any speeding ticket or something like that. President can't be expected to roll up the court because of that. It's like, I don't know. Why the fuck not? I mean, I feel like
I've not said that.
I remember
as a matter of prudence. As a matter of prudence, I probably wouldn't agree with some really, really minor infraction just for the sake of political prudence, but it doesn't mean that they're not still subject to the law. But I do want to focus, although I want to let the convoy finish, about the magnitude of what's happening and what that really means for the country.
Yeah, in general, though, my thought is that, look, I agree with Pisco that there's probably a terrible precedent to be set. I understand some people will say, well, who gives a shit about precedent? Look at this president, whatever, this and that. This is a functional thing to do. But I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, like they're already kind of laying the groundwork for ignoring those pardons anyway by saying that Biden didn't really sign them and like, oh, Biden was like senile or whatever.
Yeah, but that's not
and, like,
that's not going to hold up, right? The judges, no judge is going to back that, right?
Sure, maybe not. I mean, my point though is that like if realistically speaking, I think that the Democrats should do some things to kind of stretch over their authority and try to go for certain things that I don't know. Maybe there's some legal questions like with student loan forgiveness and like how you might interpret certain laws to extend access to care and federal funds and things like that. But, when it comes to like strict issues of the justice system, I feel like the Democrats should take a pretty hard line and say, look, I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a member of my family. I don't care if it's myself, the DOJ investigating like, members of your own government or whatever. Very, very strict separation and independence, I think is certainly the best policy. And any Democrat who goes beyond that, I think is making a pretty big mistake, both optically, but then also just when we think of like good institutional building, that's not a good way to build and enact institutional frameworks. So that's my thought on it. Even if in the short term, like this does help the Biden family and like, Fauci and the Bidens, these are old people and it's better for them to not be harassed by the DOJ. But I mean, we'll see. I just my suspicion would be that these people are going to be getting harassed within the next year or two anyway. So
yeah, I think that they're going to go after them anyway. And you might say, well, ultimately down the line, won't it be the case that they'll uphold the pardons? Probably. But, they're not ones to like preemptively listen to court orders in the first instance or to follow like obvious law anyway. And they come up with weird, like insane factual theories or insane legal theories that allow them to do the harm in the meantime, which they care about, which is leaning on people, making them hurt, and now explicitly weaponizing the Department of Justice in front of the cameras. They don't even give a fuck. They're turning this country into Russia, into China, into any one of these autocratic countries. They're turning your country into an authoritarian country. You're going to be living in a dictatorship soon if you don't stop it. And really, I mean, think about it. So about 5 years ago, when Donald Trump tried to steal the election, that was considered such a brazen act in weaponization to try to use his power to entrench himself in office. He's now showed you in the first months, he's willing to use his prosecutors, his FBI, his Department of Justice to specifically go after his political rivals for political reasons. And that should tell you about the nature of the enemy. He is the enemy. People who are his insiders and are supporting this are the enemy, and they're going to try to entrench themselves in power again. He has not been dissuaded from holding on to power and becoming a dictator in this country. He's been encouraged to be a dictator. He has his allies in the Congress. They want him to be a dictator. They want him to be a king, and that's what you have. And it's happening quickly now.
I was telling Hutch before you guys popped on that there's also the fact, like, because Hutch remarked, he's like, he's not surprised that Trump wants to investigate his political opponents because, by the way, and again, this is worthwhile, when people tell you, like Tim Pool and others, that Trump talked a big game about investigating his political opponents, but he didn't in his first term, they're either ignorant, stupid, or lying, one of the three, because Trump did, in fact, investigate his political opponent, John Kerry, Hillary Clinton. There were multiple investigations, usually by way of the IRS, into his political opponents. The New York Times actually has a really good file or expose about this.
Comey and McCabe.
Election.
Comey and McCabe were both
yeah,
audited the same year. Just astronomical odds that would happen, right?
Precisely. So again, total bullshit. But Hutch's point was, I'm surprised that he's doing it so blatantly with cameras on and everything. And one of the things I said is that Trump understands that actually his base is baying for blood, and they love it. They don't just want Trump's political opponents investigated. They want it a spectacle. They want to know that Trump's political opponents are being investigated. They delight in the spectacle of it. And I think that's
and they're trying to dissuade any future internal executive branch noncompliance. They want the people to know, because there's a reason these are internal executive branch employees. Guys, why did they start with these folks? They're starting with these folks because they were the ones who spoke out from the regime. And when the regime has internal actors that are speaking out of corruption within the executive branch, that is the biggest threat to their hold on power in terms of making sure that everyone's following their direction. So this is another step from Project 2025 of internalizing and totalizing the executive power within one man. And in doing so, they're trying to dissuade dissenters, whistleblowers, and to take total control in this country and to start attacking you, your families, your living, like everything.
Just to give maybe like younger people in the audience a sense of perspective here, if it was discovered that Barack Obama had done this behind the scenes, he would have been impeached. I think maybe even
Successfully.
maybe even by his own party.
No, successfully.
Might have voted to
100%.
impeach. And now Trump is just doing it through executive fiat in front of cameras. So on top of it being blatantly corrupt, it also feels like a bit of a power play, like a bit of a warning, a bit of a shot across the bow. Like he's doing this very publicly to tell other people you're next. But this just 10
The
years ago.
institutions are
been,
shuddering, folks. These are not
Well-
these structures that we have in power against power, these different branches of government, all this stuff, they're shuddering right now, and they're unsteady. We're on unsteady ground here, and you got to be aware of that. And don't get hysterical, but this is the truth.
I think I would be like more worried about this particular moment if Trump had been maintaining or building on his popularity, but he is, from my view, massively overplaying his hand. He's down to what, like 44 points in the aggregate, down from like 55 points. There's been a massive swing in the other direction. So he is losing popularity more and more every day. That's on the back of all the economic uncertainty. But, I guess I feel a bit encouraged right now because I'm just not too worried about him long term, because I think he reached his sort of Biden Afghanistan withdrawal moment. I really doubt he's ever going to go above like 45 points again for the rest of his entire term. And if he continues with this economic volatility, his approval rating could dip down to like 35 for the first time. If there's one fundamental you don't fuck with as a politician, it's the economy. And especially for this guy, it's built into his entire brand. Like, I'm going to bring success and prosperity to the country because I'm the successful businessman. And then he fucking crashes the economy. He's going to, the Dave Portnoys of the world will leave him. He continues down this path.
Yeah, but the thing is, Trump's approval rating matters in as much as he lets it, right? Because he's locked in for another 4 years. And again, assuming he adheres to the Constitution, which is a big if, he's not running for re-election. So for the next, until January 20th, 2029, he's going to be the most powerful man on earth, regardless if his approval rating is in the mid 40s or in the 20s. And so really it's just his vanity. It's almost like a Homelander syndrome, right? We all watch The Boys, so the deterrent for Homelander for the first 3 seasons is, we will expose you for being the, malignant narcissist, sociopath that you are. And that only that has a limit, right? Because that matters only in as much as he cares about it, because that's certainly not going to physically stop him. And that's my only concern vis-a-vis Trump is, he's had the shortest presidential honeymoon in recorded American history, at least since polls have been recorded. And really the people that we should be pressuring are his Republican sidekicks who are up for re-election in 2026, and whoever the successor is presidentially in 2028. But I wouldn't be too comforted knowing that Trump is unpopular and he could potentially get more unpopular, because again, it seems like that has limits.
It just makes his job more difficult. Like, it makes his job more difficult of passing this reconciliation bill. And, if he does drop down to 30, 33, 32 or whatever on the heels of a recession, at that point, then you start seeing Republicans serving in really swingy districts coming out against him. And then, at that point, like, it does bode well for Democrats. And I mean, I guess I'm not like, I find all of this, like, Susan Collins deeply concerning, but in the back of my mind, I cannot help but think, like, this is really good for us. Like, this is just very, very good for us.
Trump being unpopular is certainly better for us than the alternative. I don't dispute that. Like I said, I think that as a deterrence for his bad behavior, that has its limits. But I don't
know, in the case of these two guys, like, I feel like they're going to get a groundswell of support. There's going to be fucking GoFundMes to hire them top-notch lawyers. I feel like both of them are going to be fine. I mean,
what firm wants to represent him? I mean, fuck, Trump has been targeting various firms by EO. Like, that's the other thing.
Exactly.
Like, Trump's attacking this shit through both ends. And unfortunately, so many of the firms in question have not held their ground. They've capitulated like the pussies they are. So again, like, it's a candle burning at both ends, and Krebs and Taylor might be caught in the middle. I'm sure there's a law firm out there who's willing to take up the case. But again, Trump he's just attacking this quote unquote problem at both ends. Do we have anything else we want to say, Boy, about this specific topic before we turn to all the other shit going on?
Let's turn to all the other shit going on.
Yeah. So, listen, we're in the cycle. Trump's adding tariffs.
Hold on. First of all, can we just does anybody know what the fuck is going on? Because I feel like the
I
messaging
do.
is very deliberately confusing, because he's saying it's a pause on the tariffs, but then he's also saying we're gonna go down to the 10% baseline during this period. So it's not a pause. It's just a reduction in the tariff. But
Well,
is
what
it?
he-
Like, does anyone know?
Yeah. So here is what, as far as I have seen as of a few hours ago, what he's done is he had the giant, the couple of tablets of like all the different countries with the giant, tariffs on the deficit magnitude. And essentially what he has said is two things. He said the universal steel and aluminum tariffs, the car tariffs, and the Chinese tariffs, which have gone up to over 100% at this point, 125% last number I checked, which is to say that all of our inputs for China are about to get more than twice as expensive as they used to be. Those are a go, okay? But the tariffs that he paused were the tariffs above 10% on all of those other countries. So what we're left with is universal 25% tariffs on auto parts, steel and aluminum, and minimum 10% on everything else except for, I believe it's USMCA compliant things are minimum 10%. And then I think it's like 30+% on anything that's not compliant from those regions. And other than that, everything else should be a minimum 10%. And some people are, I think the market is kind of overcorrecting on that, because
Right.
what people have to understand is that when you include the Chinese tariffs, because that's such a radically high level of tariffs, and we have so much imports from China.
Right.
And then you include the reciprocal tariffs from China themselves, which I believe their reciprocal tariffs have gone up to like 84% or something like that, plus some bans on exports, that we still end up with essentially the highest weighted average tariff rate for like 100 years. It's just not like twice
Evenly
as high as
distributed.
it's ever
Right.
been. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's still a extremely high tariff rate. But the market isn't like, it's like the market's gone from expecting like a great recession to, small recession.
Well, I think a lot of people that were dumping money into the to the markets today were confused. Quite honestly, I think a lot of people were misinterpreted as he's just backing off the tariffs, but he's not. It's like you said, he's just, instead of like a 40% tariff on Laos, it's a 10% tariff. But when China is our third largest trading partner, like not that far away from Mexico in terms of the amount of trade that we have, is it not kind of a wash when you do a massive increase on tariffs for China, but then like, you reduce our tariff against like Cambodia,
Yeah, it's better for the economy, obviously, to only tariff one country insanely and a lot of other countries smallly. Because one of the reasons why the market was reacting so negatively to the previous magnitude of the tariffs was that because of Trump, in large part, we had so many different companies and so many different sort of industrial manufacturers who import a lot of their products into America, transitioned their production from China to places like Vietnam, Vietnam, India, Indonesia, places like that. And then Trump comes by and says, well, there's like no escaping radically high tariffs. Like no matter where you put your production overseas, you're going to be omega fucked if you're from one of these countries that happens to export a ton of stuff to America, which is like all of the countries basically that had these really, really high tariff rates. And so that's why the markets were reacting so negatively. And so cutting like, instead of tariffing shit from Vietnam by 50% or 60%, we're going to cut it down to 10%. Obviously, that is much better. But like you said, it's still going to be a historically high level of trade friction that literally nobody, unless you're 100+ years old, has seen in this country without seeing a Great Depression on the back end of it. So it's still very uncertain times.
Yeah, he watching him cope with this. I mean, it was funny. I did a video about this. Like one of the reporters, because like Trump makes this announcement via Truth Social, obviously, and then he speaks to reporters in the White House driveway, I believe it was, and he was surprisingly docile with the reporters. And one of them was like, he's like, "How do you have any credibility left? Because you said you weren't going to do this thing, and then you did it." And he was like, I guess he had people behind him. I don't know if it was the Dodgers or whatever. If that was yesterday. But
NASCAR, I think.
Was it NASCAR? Is that what you said?
I think so. Yeah.
So it was so funny because he was like, was like, sometimes you have a wall and you don't go through the wall. You say you're not going to go through the wall. You go around the wall or under the wall, or maybe you go through the wall. You know what I'm saying? And then he turned around and he's like, you get what I'm saying, right? And the person he was talking to was like, and just like looked down. I mean, I think he knows deep down, he's self-aware enough to realize he looks like a total bitch about this. Now, obviously, his cult, like Benny Johnson, have you guys seen like all the cope from right wingers like Benny Johnson, all of this? Benny Johnson, the same guy's like losing money. It's just like zeros. It's like, it's like numbers. It's not.
It's actually a great impression.
Yeah, and then and then when this happens and there's a bit of a rebound, he's like, "Look at this, $4 trillion. Trump's a genius." But I'm telling you, I genuinely believe that although there is a level of cultishness about it, some of these people know what they're doing, and they just love the fact that they can be total fucking hypocrites minute by minute. They can say with a straight face, look in the camera, like, "Hey, having your 401ks gone, your kid's college fund being vaporized, it's no big deal. Money's just like, it's a social construct."
Benny's
right?
obviously knows what's going on.
Or they're in on the
it's like an
scam.
obvious grift. Yeah.
Or they're in on the scam, which is that, Trump says to his followers, buy right now. And then a few hours later announces he's reversing like a cuck his policies. So you can take that one way, which is they got scared. And I think that's certainly one way to take it. But that's not incompatible with they're playing the market. And if you were to ask me like what's to make sense of like all of these spikes and changes in policy, you could take one, position, which is that he is just inconsistent, stupid, and they're just running into walls. I think that is not incompatible with when that happens, they make sure to profit.
So, Econoboy, do you think that there was some insider trading going on? Do you think like some people got a shout out in advance?
Well, I think everyone, probably every administration has some level of insider trading. Obviously, if you've got like people who have advanced knowledge of the tariff announcement coming back, there probably is some movement in the markets there. But I really don't take this kind of conspiracy very seriously when people say like, oh, Trump is doing this and that just to try and bully the market and buy low. It's like, guys, I just really don't think that Trump thinks thoughts like this, right? Like, I think Trump is truly just an idiot who's doing idiotic shit.
But you don't think thoughts like how to scam people and how to take money and do? I'd be Pisco. Here's the thing: you could be right. I'd be shocked. I'd be absolutely shocked if some shit like this came out in the future. Like, this was all a ploy to like. Then explain Trump coin. Trump coin is
coin,
exactly
Trump
that MO.
Trump coin is not related to his macroeconomic outlook. Like, Trump seemingly just genuinely very, very much believes in tariffs and shit like that.
Yeah, that's not incompatible.
Like he was. Well, Pisco, right? But I'm
agreeing.
agreeing that some people might be insider trading with this information, but I don't think that's the reason why Trump is doing this. I think that Trump is doing this.
I'm convinced he actually thinks this because we have going back decades. But I do think that they're not above it, and I think that it's telling that Trump says a few hours buy, maybe as a way to signal to certain people, when to buy.
I don't know. I think that maybe I don't know if that's even true. You have people like Elon Musk who have tried to sort of like individually manipulate stock prices in that way, not to try and like create advantageous positions for their shareholders or for other people, but to literally just try and like get people to feel confident enough to like buy stock and run up the price. Like Elon Musk got in trouble for this years ago when he openly told investors if the stock price of Tesla goes low enough, he'll just bring the company to be privately held again. He got in trouble for manipulating the stock price in that way. They have this is a group of people who
like
are
the
just
SEC slapped him, or
yeah, the SEC fined him like $100 million or something for something like that. It was several years ago. But this is just a group of people who really just don't know what they're doing, right? And I think that that's kind of how, for the most part, that's how I'm looking at this issue. Like, oh, why is he doing this and that? It's like, it's not some conspiracy about crashing the market and buying the dip or whatever. They're just a bunch of idiots. Like, the combined IQ of the average White House fucking meeting in the Oval Office is not above 100, even if there's more than 4 people in the room. These guys are really stupid. Anyway,
you have to assume that there were a lot of behind the scenes calls that happened in this last week, because there were a lot of like huge money interest that backed Trump's play in 2024 with this implicit bargain that he was, like going to slash the corporate tax rate or whatever. And I guess a lot of them probably thought he was maybe bluffing to a certain degree on the scope of the tariffs or the scope of the policy that he wanted to pursue with the tariffs. But there was no way they were going to sit back and just let this happen. So I just assume he got angry calls from like, what's her name? Miriam Adelson and, all these other
Bill
billionaires.
Ackman. Dude,
Right, like,
Ackman's full-blown panic attack has been something to behold. And the shit that he's been getting, and he deserves every second of it. He's a monstrous piece of shit. And my favorite part about Ackman is after, this is not what the people voted for, Mr. President. Then the moment that Trump does what he does, he's like, masterfully
gambit,
played.
yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's so... Oh, these people just deserve your contempt and disdain for the rest of their lives. They do.
Do you guys not feel like that we're kind of experiencing, like, do you guys not agree that Trump is in serious decline right now? Not just like, I mean, listen, 45% approval rating, that's not terrible with modern standards. But when you look at how the tape plays out over the next like few months, to me, it does not look good for Trump at all. And they have until what, July to get this reconciliation bill done.
Let's
like
see.
It's just tough. I
think I mean, yes, he's underwater. I mean, again, now that 538 rest in peace is no longer with us, I've been using the Silver Bulletin. There's another post-Liberation Day poll out today. This time it's the weekly YouGov Economist poll. It has Trump at 43% approval and 51% disapproval.
Brutal.
Trump was also underwater in last week's YouGov Economist poll pre-tariffs, but he had a -3 net approval rating compared to today's -8, and he's
his polling aggregate looks like
disapprove.
Right. It kind of looks like an alligator mouth opening up, like it's not, that's a really bad trend. And I honestly don't know how he turns it around. Like if he decides like, okay, I'm just going to, call the tariffs off at this point, his reputation so far is just so damaged.
Oh, but he turned, I'm telling you, I love your optimism. I don't feel like, listen, is he unpopular? Yes. Do I love rubbing that in MAGA's faces? Yes. Do I love rubbing in the fact that he's had the shortest presidential honeymoon in history? Yes. But he became president after January 6th, and his approval rating was in the shitter too. So I mean, like, he is subject to some degree of the laws of political gravity, but he bends them in ways no other person can. It's really disturbing and gross and disheartening. So and here's the other thing. Again, let's give the devil his due. Mike Johnson has whipped votes far better than any of us thought.
Kevin McCarthy.
By far. Now, obviously, it's not just Johnson.
With a slimmer
Trump.
majority.
Right. So I wouldn't put it past him. Plus, you also have Republicans who are folding, like the Freedom Caucus. Man, they fucking bent the knee one after another to give Trump what he wants. So when people are like, oh, I don't know about this timeline, I'm not making any predictions because I wouldn't be surprised. You had fucking wasn't it Lindsey Graham who just came out the other day and he was like, yeah, I'm going to start changing some of the rules about reconciliation. Like, insane. And
these guys are monarchists. I mean, if Trump declared himself king, you can bet your bottom dollar that if they felt it were convenient, and I assume that under any circumstance, at least 80% of the House would be with him. At least 80%.
I should just say too, like I didn't get to see the whole thing, but there was a rules committee, a House Rules Committee debate this morning about the House version, the House going to pass the Senate version of the budget rules. And of course, it was being exposed like, oh my God, the chairman who's basically advocating for its case, like Joe Neguse is like, dude, didn't you just say 2 days ago that this thing is a total disaster, a total train wreck? He's like, yep. But here you are advocating for us to pass it anyway. And the ranking member on the Democratic side, who was a witness at the hearing, he says, listen, if you guys do this, if you fuck with the rules about, what adds to the debt and what doesn't, like if you basically totally undermine the CBO on this, he's like, you're setting a precedent. And the next time there's a Democratic trifecta, he's like, we might do it with like fucking Medicare for all. And they should. And Democrats should be saying it. If you get like, I swear to God, any precedent you create, we will viciously and ruthlessly exploit. I swear to God, we will do the Harry Reid liberal version of Mitch McConnell. Like, make it clear that will happen if they fuck with. Not that it might, that we will kick out the losers like Chuck Schumer, the feckless rule followers, and we will ruthlessly exploit any precedent you set. But
what do you guys think of?
Go ahead, Hutch.
No, I was just going to ask you, what do you guys think of? There have been some Democrats serving in districts that are maybe more sympathetic, like that have constituents that maybe are more positive on tariffs. What do you guys
Jared
think of
Golden.
the? Yeah,
They need to,
talk
they need to
about
go
that
out
a little bit.
Yeah, so we need to get all of these Democrats who are giving time to the Trump MAGA movement. They need to get the fuck out of the party. They need to be kicked out. I don't care. I have no time for Jared Golden. I know the second district in Maine. I know about it, and I know that they have some, a different array of jobs than other Democratic districts. It doesn't matter. These tariffs aren't good for the manufacturing class of the people who live there. And the first and foremost responsibility that Democrats need to have is being fucking strong against Trump. And anyone who starts playing fucking pussyfoot needs to be kicked the fuck out. So absolutely, Jared Golden needs to be kicked out of his district. We need to primary the fuck out of him. I am so tired. And there should be no room in this party for people who are not willing to fight against Trump all the way, 100% of the time. And so, yeah, Jared Golden is on my shit list. He needs to be out of Congress next term.
Yeah, I feel similarly, just because, look, I don't think that I'm not saying Jared Golden needs to be AOC level progressive, but what I am saying is that Jared Golden needs to fight. He also needs to not say really dumb shit. Like when Jared Golden comes out and says, oh, what's the big deal if we don't have avocados year round? It's like, what is this anti-consumerism on the right that somehow infected our politics? This is not a popular message at large. And, a lot of people say, oh, we can't acquiesce to the progressives in our party. Guess what? The progressives are much more in lockstep with the mindset of the base of the Democratic Party than people on the right like Jared Golden are right now. We can't afford the party to get hijacked by these feckless centrists in the party right now. They are the reason why our party has a 20% approval rating, because the people in our base feel like we're not willing to fight back. We're not willing to put up as much of a fight as we should. It's just a matter of what kind of party, you go into an election and you win with a weak message, you govern weakly, and then we're surprised why we keep fucking losing to lunatics on the right. Like, I just think that we have to go into the election with a strong message, with a strong leader, with a strong party, and say, we're not Republicans. We're not going to govern that way. We have a very different way of viewing things. We're not going to compromise on our basic values. And we're going to win that way. And we're
going to kick you in the fucking teeth. And we're going to kick you in the teeth. I don't want this fucking... Metaphorically. I don't want this fucking, respectability politics anymore. So when I say that Dave Portnoy is being a bitch on Twitter, that's the kind of rhetoric that I want from my Democratic Congress people, to call these people out and stop pussyfooting around. Let's get real here, folks.
I really just don't... the last thing that I'll say on this before Josiah and Hutch want to jump in is, for a long time, people have said, oh my goodness, you lefties, you progressives, people are not exactly going to be inspired by this message. They're going to be turned off. Think of suburbia. Think of your people in Appalachia and the Rust Belt and things like this. And it's like, I just don't agree with this at all, right? One of the reasons why I think that Democrats for a long time have had this reputation, one of the reasons why people view Democrats as not very masculine and weak and things like that, is because that's how fucking the average politician on the Democratic side has been governing, right? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm Jared Polis, maybe RFK isn't so bad. And yeah, I'm Jared Golden. I guess the tariffs are good. And, I'm Chuck Schumer. I guess we can't shut the government down. God, that would guys, you wonder why people have this image of Democrats as weak and feckless. That's how you've been governing in opposition for a long time, right? And I just...
For years. It's been a problem for years.
Well, yeah, you do have a decent chunk of the progressive sort of wing of the party that are very much open to protectionist trade policy, that are very much opposed to free trade agreements.
It's not about policy. It's not about policy. There's a lot of things that Obama did that were Republican light, right? The Affordable Care Act was literally Mitt Romney's plan for a while. I think it was a Heritage Foundation, or at least elements of it were. Now, I agree that it's not 100% a wholesale, transfer of it, but you find a reason to fight against these motherfuckers. And just for example, it's true in the, I haven't read it yet, I just want to be clear, in the, Abundance book, the Ezra Klein folks, they might have some good ideas in there, but what I don't really care that much about policy at the moment. What I care about is energy and fighting back and being strong. And that can be policy agnostic. That is why, by the way, I think people like Kyle Kalinske are based as fuck. That's why I think that people who are real fighters are based as fuck, and not like these TYT folks, Cenk Uygur folks, or people who sound like, okay, the Trump administration didn't have a point. I don't want that. I want fighters.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously it's reflected in the polling. The Democratic base, it doesn't matter where their politics are, they want people to resist the Trump administration. It's not just like the far left version of the Democratic base, it's also the moderates as well. They don't want to negotiate with Trump. They want you to own the cons. They want, again, that's the central animating principle of the MAGA movement. Own the libs, own the libs, own the libs at all costs, at any cost, even if it involves mutual pain. Just own the libs. And I think the Democratic Party needs a bit of that. I think the Democratic Party needs a bit of an own the con sentiment, where we go out and we troll and mock and belittle and make it clear that if we get power again, we're going to do a bit, just a bit of what MAGA does when they have power. I think I think there's an appetite. I don't think it's just me, and I don't think it's just Pisco. I think there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Democrats out there who want that fight in them. Not as much as Republicans.
I just want to say a major policy for me would be, I'm not saying this is the smartest thing to run on, but this is what I want. I want a commission on truth. I want a commission on truth. And that commission on truth is going to go through all of the corruption of this administration and the prior administration. And we're going to put some officials behind bars. And that's going to be a goal of mine to advocate for every single day on the Democratic cycles, is to advocate for a commission on truth, to get these officials and put a lot of them behind bars for their corruption, criminality, and malfeasance.
The real quick, you said something about Kyle Kalinske. Fuck, you said something.
I said it was based.
God damn it, I can't remember. I don't know.
So, for example, so when you knowingly send someone that you are not allowed to send to a gulag in El Salvador, that's a criminal act. And if it's not, it should be. And we should test those legal theories to see, hey, when a government official knowingly sends you to a gulag in total disregard for your rights, let's look at the criminality books on that. Let's look at whether it's a deprivation of civil rights and charge these motherfuckers with crimes.
Massively unpopular, by the way. I mean, like Trump was crushing it when it came to immigration stuff, but he's well underwater when it comes to this. It's like,
well, I don't know if he's well under. I mean, he is in some polls. It's still his strongest area, but yeah, like he's
no. I mean, on this specific issue of sending people to El Salvador,
yeah.
like a large. It's like 55-35, and then the rest is like undecided, 10 undecided or something like that. But
now I remember what I was going to say. It wasn't about Kyle Kalinske. It was about Ezra Klein, because the Abundance book, which I also have not read yet. I don't know if Econo Boy's read it, but one of the I've been listening to a lot of his interviews, and one of the things again he points out that I think is worth noting is what the census is going to look like, in 2030.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be a fucking bloodbath for us at the presidential and House level if Democrats don't get their shit together at the state level. And so to me, that's where, I know that he's been getting some pushback. I don't want to say it's all bad faith. I know majority reports push back on quite a bit. I don't think Matt Lutch likes the guy at all. I think Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland recognize that there's some validity to what Ezra Klein's talking about. But to me, that's the red fucking light right there, which is that no matter where you are, if you think that Ezra Klein is too lib about it, or whatever, we should all be worried about doing what we need to do to make sure that Democratic states, that blue states, either attract people back or keep their population such that we're not just totally fucking redistricted out of any possibility to reclaim the majority.
Like within the larger sort of like broad category of the economy, the cost of living, I think maybe the cost of groceries is the number one most salient sort of subgroup, but the cost of living has got to be right next to it. And, there is a problem if Texas is out developing California with respect to real estate, fucking 10-1. And if we continue to allow these housing costs to be so prohibitive that people are tempted to move to places like fucking Utah or Colorado or Nevada, then, it will be a bloodbath in 2030 when they redraw. I mean, like if the trends hold, and I could be wrong, but if the trends hold, we're going to need more than the blue wall.
Yeah, the blue wall will be insufficient. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Convoy, what do you think about all this? Because I'm sure have you dove deeply into abundance or?
Yeah, I've read a lot of secondary stuff on it. I haven't read the book myself, but I mean, a lot of lefties just get mad at Ezra Klein because he's historically been on, you'd call him like more on the moderate wing of a lot of issues. Like he's been historically against single payer healthcare, which is kind of what originally got a lot of lefties really mad at him from what I can tell. But his actual fundamental
was he against single payer or was he against campaigning on it in certain years?
I mean, I don't know. I saw him debate Matt Brunig, I think, a couple times on single payer. So for whatever
Okay.
reason, he just doesn't think it's a good idea. But I guess even if you were to say like, I don't like single payer because it's a politically unpopular thing, the left would still not appreciate you for that. But anyway, nonetheless, though, I think that yeah, I think that he's got a point that obviously one of the reasons why people move out of places like California and Seattle and places like that is the the inefficient tax burden and also the very sort of high difficulty of building new housing and whatnot. I will say I'm not quite as doomer about like the demographic transformation of the country, because I mean, think about it, right? Like if we see like 10 million Californians or something exported across all the country, the whole rest of the country is just getting that much more blue, right? And I don't know if like housing costs are the whole reason, because obviously, people aren't moving to places like Detroit and Cleveland, even though housing is dirt cheap over there, right? So it's a holistic thing. But yeah, Democratic states should try to make themselves a little bit more attractive to move to. You see, like in Colorado, people are really kind of flocking to Colorado. I think people are flocking to places like New Mexico as well. I think, in general, I think that there's definitely some appetite for some reform. But, that requires the same thing that we've been talking about this whole time, is Democrats to have the courage to actually stand up to these ridiculously minority interest groups where it's like, hey, look, we're 10% of the population in LA, and we fucking hate when people build new housing because we have these $3 million homes that we don't want to be worth $1.5 million all of a sudden. And it's like, you guys have to just stand up to these people and say,
You want the Democrats to wage a war on NIMBYs?
Well,
literally, yes. I mean, of course.
Listen, I commit to reading Abundance this week, and I'll have it read, and I'll be able to give you my full thoughts on it. And I actually liked, is it Derek Thompson, who went on some show? I thought he did a really good job there, and I like it when he's providing a contrast there. Here's why I'm skeptical, or I'm at the starting gate, I'm a little bit concerned about the messaging here. The messaging needs to be against Republicans. The messaging needs to be against Republicans. I'm going to say it again. A messaging needs to be against Republicans, and there are the couple of like key examples in all of these interviews that Ezra brings up. I know he's misrepresenting. He's misrepresenting the BEAD funding with the internet stuff, where he's painting it as though Democrats really wanted this very burdensome process, when who wanted that burdensome process? Who forced it to happen? It was because Manchin and Sinema did not want this to not be bipartisan and to be run through, just the Democrats. And so we had to cater to what the Republicans wanted. When he's starting to talk about, the problems with the California rail, I happen to know he's misrepresenting the true nature of the problem, which was not enough funding. So if you're out of the gate doing things where I know some of the facts here, and you're painting it as though it's kind of like an endemic Democrat problem related to the 60s and 70s environmental regulations, I'm a little skeptical about that. And I'm going to read the book for sure. But I think that the tone needs to be much more aggressive against Republicans. That's what the moment calls for. That's why people are going to AOC and Bernie right now, because that's where the energy is.
So, Econoboy, you were talking about how like politicians in blue states should not let like a small, fringe minority, maybe 5-10%, like have too much of a say on policy. But there was a story that came out. There was some kind of summit that Democratic leadership had, and there were like 5 bullet points in terms of like strategy moving forward. And one of those bullet points was to stop giving such an outsized influence to small donors. And the logic there was that if somebody was politically engaged enough to donate, they're more than likely, on average, they're going to skew much more left than the rest of the electorate. Do you also support that, or is there some nuance there?
Well, I mean, there's obviously some nuance in all these things that we're saying. I mean, I would just say that I think that specifically seems very suspicious to me. Obviously, look, you have to get your money from somewhere if you're running in politics in this country. I would, of course, much rather Democrats get rid of corporate impact donors and billionaire donors. And look, I understand we're putting ourselves at somewhat of a disadvantage if we do that, but I think that that's just such a good message to send out to people overall. Like, let's just say that the Democrats in 2028, let's say instead of raising $2 billion for a presidential election, we only raise, $1.25 billion, and we get rid of all these billionaire contributions and whatnot. I think that is not only a net vote getter, because you can at least stand on high ground and say, look, we're not the party of billionaires. Look at them cozying up to every billionaire they can. This is a picture of Trump's inauguration with every billionaire that you hate: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. These are the guys crushing unions. These are the guys killing your wages. These are the guys making you forcing you to work in unsafe working conditions. Like, I think that's a really strong message. And, I do think that the Democrats make a mistake by continuing to take this billionaire money, not only because it's bad for our country at large, but also it's bad for their political chances. And so that's kind of my thought on it. I think that was a really kind of, there might be some nuance to that, but overall, it's like, no, you guys are clearly pointing the finger at the wrong people here. It's one thing to say, like, we're not going to allow a small minority of people take over the messaging of the party. That's always fair, of course, but it's another thing to say, like, well, of the money that we're getting, we don't necessarily want it to be mostly small donors. I just think that's a very incorrect approach.
That's not what I thought you were going with that. I thought you were going to say Democrats need to take power and repeal or overturn Citizens United. So that's why I was giving you the thumbs up. I don't think I co-sign unilaterally disarming, but I'm open to it given.
But why is Jeffries going to Silicon Valley, Josiah? Why is in this moment when we have Elon Musk, David Sachs making a fool of themselves?
I think that's
Silicon Valley?
That's a terrible messaging because here's the thing: we're not in an election season yet. So if at any point it is required for you to kiss the ass of Silicon Valley donors, it's certainly not now, and it undermines the momentum. I prefer the Ro Khanna approach, which is that he has repeatedly supported campaign finance reform, but he's not going to unilaterally disarm. But I totally agree.
Well, no, but that's not true though. Josiah. Ro Khanna does not take corporate and PAC contributions. He only takes individual contributions. And so I think that if the Democrats wanted to come out and say, look, if you're a billionaire who wants to write us a check for $2,500,
oh, then there you go. Okay, sure,
right?
Sure.
But
yeah. Okay.
What I'm saying is that the bullshit where we go to Michael Bloomberg and we go to George Soros and we go to all the, Tom Steyer and all these more kind of like liberal.
Somebody say George Soros? Sorry,
yeah.
like,
we go to all these
everywhere.
more like, we go to all these like liberal aligned billionaires and beg them for money. Yeah, we only get 25% of the billionaire money, but that's 25% too much of that market share. I'd rather that go to 0%. I'd rather us double down on our small dollar donations and our kind of like grassroots efforts. And sure, we're going to raise less money, but I mean, Trump has made it clear that you can run, shockingly, a radical campaign on a discount and still win in this country. I don't think that that's exclusive to the right wing. I think that the Democrats can run a strong message on, not because obviously Trump still takes billionaire money, but he just raised on net, I believe, less money than the Democrats in the 2 elections that he won.
Sure.
I think that that's kind of your winning strategy overall. It gives you a much higher ground, much more stable campaign.
What do you say to the idea that Ro Khanna serves in a very safely blue district? What would you say to the pushback that maybe someone who's serving in a district that was, in a race that was decided by 1 or 2 points in 2024, they just don't have the same kind of leeway to forego funding from certain.
I think Katie Porter's represented a relatively purple district, and I believe she was in the group that only took individual contributions as well. And so, look, you can I've worked in and around progressive campaign spaces before, and you can certainly raise a lot of money with individual contributions. The problem is that, look, it's just a more labor intensive process, right? Instead of going to a single billionaire and getting $100,000 put into a super PAC, you have to make a shitload of phone calls to like a whole bunch of like pharmacists and doctors and lawyers and people who might be willing to do a max individual contribution. That's a lot heftier of a process. But again, I think that gives you so much more of a state. If you're going to run a campaign on Trump is corrupt and the Republicans are corrupt and the evil billionaire Elon Musk is trying to buy elections, it makes sense why Republicans come around and say, well, what about George Soros? What about Michael Bloomberg? It's like, well, fuck, fundamentally, that's somewhat fair, right?
And also, I just want to say, like, I think that 50% of these expenditures, I have no basis to say 50%. These are fucking scams. I think that these all go in a fucking black hole of consultants, and like half of it doesn't even matter. And we just need to get good at messaging and social media because it's a different game now.
You're right
it's
about that.
It's a completely different game. And
yeah,
I feel
where
like
money
people
and
who are
ground
spending this
game.
money,
yeah,
they're spending money on bullshit, and I just feel like people need to be smarter. I don't know.
I was just about to say that Kamala outspent Trump. Like 4-1, 5-1, and he still won every single swing state. So if there's anything that makes me sympathetic to your argument that we should get rid of that, the big donor money, it's the fact that it seems like what Trump demonstrated is that, to Pisco's point, if you can smart money is better than like a lot of money. Choosing where you spend that money matters.
I mean, look at Beto O'Rourke in 2018, the one semi-successful campaign that Beto ran. He ends up nearly beating Ted Cruz in the midterms in 2018. He doesn't take corporate and PAC money in that election. He only takes individual contributions. He also does one step further to address part of what Pisco is saying. He says, look, I'm not spending any money on these political consultants. These political consultants come in, they take $50,000, $100,000, and for what, right? They're going to tell me how to message to voters. Like, no, and Beto ran a relatively speaking progressive campaign. He's talked about an assault weapons ban, even running in Texas. Comes within 2 points of beating Ted Cruz in 2018. We'd have a Democratic senator nearly to this day, assuming, I don't know how his reelection would have gone. But obviously, like, I just think that fundamentally, if you can stand on business and you can say, I am the anti-corruption campaign, I'm not taking money from billionaires or PACs or corporations, my opponent is, the Republican Party is, I think that does pay dividends to you, because I think that people, for the most part, especially in a saturated media environment, you get so much free media, so many political ads get run anyway. I think that you can really, really convince a large margin of people just on that pure corruption issue. I mean, how many people voted for Bernie? You had like Trump Bernie people who voted for
AOC.
Bernie literally just because Bernie said, I don't take money from these billionaires. I want money to get out of politics. I mean, that just seems like an issue it's one of the few issues where it does seem to genuinely cause a margin of people to cross over. I'm not saying it wins the issue, wins the election all on its own, but the idea like, oh, we just have to take this billionaire money, we have to go to these private meetings with billionaires. Fuck that. Like, that's just bullshit, dude.
So-
Like, I
so a
just feel
couple
like, not to you, Hutch, but just like to the people who say that.
So
I'm
a
just-
couple
I'm
of
just
things
steel
real
manning.
quick. A couple of things real quick, because I know we got about 30 minutes left. Again, I've been seeing people like Chris Vera, and Jay Stutter, and a couple of others disagree. We're happy to send you the invitation link. You can hop in, have a conversation.
Jay Stutter's a drunk. Don't listen to him.
Oh, is
Chris
it?
was in here saying
Yeah.
that CNN has Trump positive in approval rating. So I don't
Oh
think
yeah,
it's-
Chris, if you're still watching, buddy, just comment and we'll send you the link. But real quick, I just saw this while you all were talking. H.R. McMaster, who is Trump's former national security advisor, receives accidental call from Trump. Henry is how Trump opened the call before launching into the conversation, according to two sources who are not authorized to discuss private conversations. It was then that McMaster knew this familiar voice was indeed Trump. He says, Mr. President, this is H.R. McMaster. And quote, why the fuck would I talk to H.R. McMaster? Trump said. So like he accidentally, this fucking, I'm
To be
telling
fair,
you
that
guys.
was probably a staffer. I'm sure he's not the
No,
one
I
that's actually
know,
calling
but
people.
but it's just so fucking funny.
That is funny,
This
yeah.
administration is exactly what it is. And then real quick, while we're on the topic, or returning real quick to the topic of potential insider trading, Chris Murphy just dropped this. So let's take a look at it real quick.
So I have questions about the tariff announcements today. Who benefited and who made money?
Yep.
And this should matter to you too, because this could be an enormous scam. What we know is that about 9:30 today, Trump posts on social media that people should buy. It's a good time to buy. And then 3 hours later, guess what? He announces that there's going to be a 90-day suspension of many of the tariffs. Predictably, the market, which had been crashing, shoots up, and anyone who made investments early today likely made a lot of money. And so the question is, who close to Trump knew that he was going to suspend the tariffs? Which of his Mar-a-Lago friends or his billionaire advisors were able to capitalize on that inside information? Why did Trump send out that post to his supporters earlier in the day? The bottom line is that the chaotic nature of this tariff policy, with Trump's position changing every single hour, gives ample opportunity for any individual who has early access to information about the White House's change in position to make boatloads of money, either by investing at the right time or pulling their money out of the market at the right time. This entire White House is one giant grift. Donald Trump and his friends are in power in order to use their access to government to make money. It stinks, and we should get to the bottom of it.
He's not wrong.
100%.
He's not wrong, but I feel like this is a hashtag nothing ever happened situation where this is just going to get buried in the next 2 days. And I mean,
It all is.
right. But yeah,
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like even Signalgate, right? Like that was
exactly.
the most searched story, the most penetrated story of the Trump second term, and we're not even talking about it anymore because the Steve Bannon fire hose of bullshit approach works, and there's just a media asymmetry that we can't compete with.
Real
And they have all the
quickly,
power.
just as a quick aside, you were talking about Johnson's ability to whip the votes. They actually, it's just being reported right now that they're punting the vote for their budget to tomorrow, so he wasn't able to
Really?
whip those votes tonight. Yeah.
Good.
Chris Murphy is the best senator in the U.S. Senate. He needs to be the minority leader right now. We need to have messaging on this, these absolutely like viable conspiracies that could be occurring, and other areas where we know it's a grift and they're using their money or they're using their power to make money. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if we just forget about it by having feckless leaders like Chuck Schumer in charge of the Senate. People like Chris Murphy need to be installed as the leaders of the Senate. No, 100%. He's a feckless leader. Chuck Schumer.
How dare you?
I will not vote for Chuck Schumer in any Democratic primary. I'll only vote for him if it's against another, like a Republican in a general election. But you saw that poll where AOC is beating Chuck Schumer. And I'm tired. I have to say, I am so fucking tired of us having to play with our hands tied behind our back. We should be running on criminal investigations into every single individual involved in this corruption, in the insider trading schemes, in the meme coin stuff. And we should be promising the American people full transparency when we take office.
Lock him up, Pisco?
100%. Like we should, there should be, everyone here agrees, there should be a criminal investigation into what just occurred with the stocks. That should be a criminal investigation by itself. There should be a criminal investigation into the meme coins. They just, by the way, completely gutted all of the crypto regulatory agencies and frameworks bit by bit. The Department of Justice, they're stopping to do those kinds of investigations. It is open corruption in your face. It's blatant, and it's right there for the taking. If we had the fucking balls, if we had the personnel, and that's another thing. We need people who can communicate. We don't have people who can communicate. We have people who are just sitting there like robots reading off a script. They're too old. They're too old. If you're over 70-year-olds and your name's not Bernie Sanders, you need to be out of Congress. You need to hand over the torch.
I think you're specifically referring to Dem leadership, because I have seen quite a few impressive examples of congressional Dems that are stepping up and meeting this moment every day.
Yeah, it's sad that the rank and file is the one with all the fight and the energy, and we're not seeing much by way of congressional leadership. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries has disappointed me. Chuck Schumer has obviously disappointed me the most. I'm blanking on her fucking name. Slotkin. She's not part of
Alyssa
leadership
Slotkin,
per se, but she was the one who gave the rebuttal for Trump's joint address.
Oh my God.
She's disappointed me. She actually voted to confirm another Senate confirmable Trump appointee today, whereas Brian Schatz and a bunch of others are actually redeeming themselves by putting holds on all of Trump's appointees, which is precisely the energy you should bring. We are past the point. You are misreading the room. You're misreading what your voters want, what your constituents want, if you are at this point voting to confirm Trump's appointees.
That's why I'm scared about abundance, by the way, because when you have this kind of like allusion to Reaganite policies or Reaganite deregulation, that stuff is inherently for me like, whoa, I don't want to run on that shit. There might be some good ideas there. And again, I'm going to read the book 100%.
Yeah.
I will. But
Your better half loves it.
I don't want to package this up in a kind of, let's go back to this kind of free market, just pure free market stuff, and domestically, and let's get rid of all these government tramping down on business. That sounds like we're empowering the same people that Trump is deregulated right now. The crypto bros, the people who out in Silicon Valley, which right now have my entire enmity.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing kind of a disconnect between leadership and just individual members of the party, right? Is that I think that leadership, I mean, take like Jeffries, right? When you're in Democratic leadership, and this is true for a lot of members that rely on big contributions to the party, there have been multiple documentaries, there have been multiple news stories about this, where like a half of the time of like being a congressperson is on the phone begging for money. Like that's like most of what you're doing when you're.
Cinema was a good example of that.
Right, and especially when you're in leadership, right? I mean, you're spending such a disproportionate amount of your time with rich business people, right? Big inheritors, big trust fund people, big business people in general. And a lot of those people are, they're giving you a message like this, right? They're telling you not to be disruptive. They're telling you, look, think about the markets, free markets, lower taxes. And I'm not saying that the Democrats and the Republicans are same on this issue. They're clearly not. There's clearly a difference between the two parties. But to Pisco's point, I think that, another reason, I guess for selfish purposes as well, that I hope the Democrats can get out of this nonsense of begging corporations and billionaires for money is that I do think that it would create more of a connection between the base of the party and the actual leaderships themselves. We just spend, I mean, how much unproductive time is spent on the phone with billionaires when you rather could spend that time doing town halls or writing legislation that actually would benefit your constituents. So
what if I were to push back
a little bit better?
What if I were to push back and say that Biden definitely was in the rooms with a lot of those like business leaders and billionaires, and he didn't turn away that money, and he delivered us the most progressive policy agenda of any modern president?
Yeah, I'm not saying that, number one, that billionaires can't have progressive views that they espouse as well. I mean, for instance, I think that one of the reasons why you see in part a disconnect is because the donors at the Democratic Party tend to be a little bit further left on social issues than, sort of base Democrats themselves and the population at large. So I'm not saying that, number one. I'm just saying to respond to that directly, that Democrats in general have a problem where I think they're spending way too much time in these kinds of rooms. They're being way too cautious with their messaging. And that's, a whole number of issues that go into that. I think that just spending so much of your time talking to these billionaires is one of them. And also, again, it makes you look bad, right? It's like, why are you spending your time doing this? Wouldn't you rather just not hang out with these people? I don't know.
I'm just not sure. I mean, I don't think I even necessarily disagree with you, because I think I would prefer that they spent more time talking to the base and less time to the wealthy donors. But both Donald Trump and Joe Biden accepted big money donors, and Elizabeth Warren, I think she started her 2020 primary campaign promising she wouldn't take PAC money, and then by the end she's like, never mind. I just if I feel like there would have to be like a tangible benefit in sight because of this switch, and it just doesn't appear to be the case.
There is, though. Do you agree with what I said earlier about look, I because what are we talking about here? We're talking about extra TV ads, maybe a few extra canvas. I just don't think that the billionaire money is making that big of a difference. Look at Bloomberg, might be the best example. When he ran for president, he spent $1 billion just to campaign for Super Tuesday, right? He ends up getting 15-20% of the vote, which is to say, the marginal dollars just aren't that effective.
These guys got to be on Kai Cenat. These guys have to be on Piers Morgan. These guys have to be on Pondering Politics. They have to be
sure.
This is where they need to be. This is where you should spend your time. That's my opinion, though. Sorry.
Well, you don't think that Elon Musk, for example, had a lot of influence in the 2024 cycle all over the country?
Well, no, I think that billionaires, again, I'm not making the claim that billionaire money doesn't have some effect. What I will say, though, however, is two things at once. Number one, you could peer into the truth of the universe through God's eyes and tell me that actually billionaire money has no effect on election outcome. I will still say that it's wrong, because mechanically I don't want my representatives spending more time with billionaires than they do with their actual constituents. Mm-hmm. I don't want billionaires to have a disproportionate sort of say and field time with my representatives than regular everyday people. And number two, I think that as well, Democrats are advantaged from this type of messaging that, hey, we don't take that money, they do. Unfortunately, I think Democrats are still going to be cowardly on this issue, but at least we have a growing pocket of the party that tries to, of all the people who don't take, corporate and PAC and billionaire contributions, 95% of them seem to be part of the Progressive Caucus. It seems like the progressives are just correct on this issue, if you ask me. So that's kind of how I sit on the issue. I mean, I still vote for Democrats. I'm going to vote for, if Gavin Newsom's the nominee and he's going to George Soros's house and fucking chilling with him, I'm still going to fucking vote for him, I guess.
But bro, he's so cringe. Like this whole shit with his podcast. It's just.
Well, I'll tell you one episode.
Sensibilities.
No, what's interesting is I'm excited to see the next episode, because he has my former governor, Andy Beshear of Kentucky, on. Andy, who is the best of us morally. Just what a
two probable 2028 primary opponents doing a podcast together.
Yeah, I don't know. What's funny is, I mean, Andy is very popular in deep red Kentucky, which is surprising. But his father was a governor too, two-term governor. I think he was at one point at least the most popular governor in the country. And he's a smart guy. He's actually a really good debater when he wants to be. So he's got a bit of an edge to him when he wants to be for Andy. But my only hesitation about Governor Beshear is that I just don't think he has the ruthlessness. Somebody in the next Democratic ticket has got to be just a fucking ball buster, just going out and collecting metaphorical spines, and that's definitely not Andy Beshear. So he's gonna have to compensate. I mean, what's funny is people are talking about Walz again in 2028, and I love his energy. I love what he's been doing. I know he'd probably be in his, would he be in his 60s or 70s at that point, or close to it?
Close to it.
No, I think he'd be in his late 60s, right?
He's 60 right now, so he'd be about.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then
he
I'm
keeps
not
saying. He even
age.
said so recently. He keeps saying that he doesn't plan on running, but he
Let's hope he's just joshing us, okay?
Oh,
'Cause,
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
go on,
chat
Phil.
real quick said Stephen A. Smith. What do you all think about that? Tell me what you all think about the Stephen A.
No, it's-
Smith.
Nah, I
it's the
entertained it
same
for
thing.
about
He's weak.
5 minutes, but there was
He's
a
weak.
poll that came out recently that had Vance up like 20 points against him. I don't know if you guys saw that,
like
but yeah.
Stephen A. Smith. I mean, it's the same thing I think about Jon Stewart, right? Which is like I feel like people are kind of in love with the idea of something like that. But in practice, look, I mean, there's a reason why Trump was a disaster, on so many different angles for the Republican Party. I would like to have somebody who has some real governing experience. I'd like to have somebody who's a little bit deeper than just pure rhetoric. And so that's why, I advocate for pretty traditional politicians a lot of the times.
Joe
Like, I
Manchin.
think that,
Yeah.
well,
I have
like
to say-
people like I was just gonna say I like people like Walls, AOC, even a guy like Ossoff, right? Like people with good biting rhetoric, but also people who have like traditional political experience as well.
Would you all vote for a Stephen A. Smith, Joe Manchin ticket for the
Fuck no.
If they were the only Dems on the candidate or on the ballot,
it's
then
them,
obviously.
it's them versus fucking JD Vance and I don't know, Cash Patel 2028.
There are
Every
things the
day-
Democrats could do that I would abandon the party. I mean, that might be one of them.
Every day I woke up in the last 6 years and got down on my knees and thank God that Joe Manchin was a Democrat serving in West Virginia. Where's he from again? Is it West Virginia?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mountain Mama. Take me home.
I am so done with these bringing common sense back to the White House, bringing common sense back to governing type people. I'm so fucking done with it. We need to get rid of this, people who are ideologically spineless, who have no direction, and who just want to do everything moderate and just be common sense. I'm done with it. We don't need it in the party anymore. We need killers. We need people who are actually directional and purposeful and want to do certain things. And so I want people who have Riz like Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith has Riz, right? Jon Stewart has Riz, but they're weak. They're weak because they need to have that kind of Portnoy-esque, Barstool-esque. I'm just like everyone else, dude. No, you have to have purpose. You need to have direction.
I want a pragmatist who's a killer. I want a pragmatist who can go on like Bill Maher and Piers Morgan and all these spaces and
Stephen A.
hold their
Smith
own.
would be. Stephen A. Smith spends more time bitching at Democrats than he does Republicans. And here's the thing, and I've even said it in my videos.
That's
I have
true.
no problem admitting that we as a party suck at the moment. Now, I don't go as far as a lot of these others do, as Hutch points out. When people say, "Oh, Democrats can't win elections," no bullshit. We actually performed pretty well. 2018, 2020, 2021 runoffs.
in Florida just
2020 yeah.
recently, in Wisconsin
Right, exactly.
just last week, right?
Exactly.
So,
So
yeah.
I'm not going to say that we literally suck at everything and we can't win elections, but in terms of flogging the party, perfectly when it's merited. I mean, we are less popular than Donald Trump, and that deserves mockery, scorn, and division. And we should engage in some Catholic level shame and guilt introspection there. But Stephen A. Smith takes it further, where he just Donald Trump is the honest one. What? What are you talking about?
Gave a softball interview to Candace Owens.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that. But this fucking idea that Donald Trump is more honest and this bullshit talking point, that he's more authentic.
They're egomaniacs. They're egomaniacs.
Yeah.
They're no different than all these other influencers. That they need to have the different opinion. They need to be different than your status quo person. But in that way, you can tell all they care about is themselves, and they don't have any independent purpose or drive. Yeah. And that's should be what our party needs: a combination of the Riz, but the purpose. And it's ideal. I have to stress this. It is not policy biased here. I would take that from a centrist. I would take it from a liberal. I would take it from a progressive. We just need that character of candidate, and we don't have a lot of those.
Yeah,
it's not going to be AOC though. You don't really think it's going to be AOC, do you?
It absolutely could be. It absolutely could be.
I'm
And
going to
right now,
you guys are talking. I'll be right back.
And if there was anyone right now among the Democratic, candidates, for me, my top candidates would be Chris Murphy, AOC, those types of people. Or fuck it. Let's
Vance
go wild
would
with it.
murder AOC, I think.
I don't know. I don't, Hutch. I don't think
In
so.
a video
I don't think
game.
so. I think that especially with Vance, I think that he's very Rizless. I think that Pisco is right to kind of overprice that in, but I think that the issue with AOC is the primary. It's always been the issue with progressives. Can you actually get through the primary? But when it comes to being a general election candidate, again, I just I keep fucking going back to this, okay? And I know I don't mean for this to be a huge portion of my analysis as to why I think AOC might be a reasonably strong candidate in the general election. There was a precinct in her district in this most recent election. She's on the ballot. Trump is on the ballot. the same group of 300 people, plus 5 for Trump, plus 25 for AOC. There's a huge margin of people. I'm not saying AOC would win fucking by 30% of the vote or something like that. I meme about her winning 49 states like Tim Pool or whatever. But what I do think though is that people when they're deciding how to vote and who to vote for, I think there's a traditionalism in people's analysis of elections, and they say, look at Hillary Clinton, look at Kamala. A woman can't win, much less a woman of color, much less, this like wild-eyed socialist like AOC. I don't think that that's right. Okay. The reason I don't think that's right is not because there's not a margin of people who say, oh, I'm turned off by radical rhetoric. Oh, I'm a sexist. I'm not going to vote for a woman. Oh, I'm a racist. I'm not going to vote for a Hispanic person. Like, I understand there's a margin of people who are like that, and that's unfortunate. But I think that the big thing that makes the difference, and I think it's going to be the thing especially that makes the difference in 2028, it's certainly the thing that made the difference in 2024, is having biting, strong-willed rhetoric. Sure, she might come out for a Green New Deal, and people might be like, I don't know about that. But at least it's a strong position that people can tire to, provides a little positive motivation in the party. And you can look at polling from 2020 and in 2016, Bernie did better than Hillary against Trump in a head-to-head matchup in every single poll. I think Biden did a little bit better than Bernie in 2020, but I think in general, I've been consistent saying Bernie would have won in 16. And in 2024,
Bernie would have won in
know,
2024.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In 2024, I'm not sure necessarily because there was not really a competitive primary in 2024. It's hard to say who would have won besides either Kamala or Biden. But absolutely, I think that Kamala coming out with a very weak message, with a very kind of milquetoast platform, certainly hurts her in the end. Kneecapping Tim Walz and making it, like he was told to stop with all the weird rhetoric. And it's like, dude, the thing that made Walz go viral was saying Republicans were weird, right? Like we need just a little bit more forceful rhetoric from the Democrats. And unfortunately, I mean, obviously, Hush, I have to go back to this. It's pretty much the progressives who are offering that, right? And it's a correlation, not causal. Like moderates could do the same thing. The reason why I say Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff will be so good. But of the people offering the forceful rhetoric, it just fucking seems like 85% of them are progressives. And I guess that's good for me, but still.
That's all well and good. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have to convince primary voters that you're the one to lead the party. And yeah. I just never bought into the theory that the guy who lost to Hillary Clinton would have beat Donald Trump. And I always hear this argument that primary voters are different from general election voters, but it's just such a difficult thing to swallow at face value. And
but Hutchie, on the Republican side, you would agree that Republicans sometimes nominate candidates that are not optimal general election candidates. That happens on the Republican side all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Carrie Lake.
Right.
Oh, are you hypothesizing Bernie versus a weak candidate? If that's what you mean.
No. The principle he's saying is if you can understand why it's possible for someone to go through a primary in the context of the Republicans and be disadvantaged in the general, surely that could be hypothesized and in fact maybe even accepted in the Democratic context.
You could lose in a primary or win in a primary, but that doesn't mean that you're optimal for the general election. That's all I'm saying about Bernie and progressives.
I mean, like, look, I've supported Bernie. I donated a bunch of money to his campaign in 2020. I was feeling very optimistic when he was leading the pack before the the Super Tuesday massacre. But the fact of the matter is like, so black voters are just an enormously consequential, important part of the Democratic Party coalition. And he's just not historically done well with that. So he, whatever. And this kind of goes for progressives across the board. So like, you either would have to sort of like have a demographic, like a major demographic shift, which I suppose is possible, or you're going to have to find a way to convince black voters that you're the one for the job. And that's why I just have like deep skepticism right now of someone like AOC. Like, sure, like a lot can happen, and Trump is a very volatile person, so maybe there's some opportunity there to go in there and like fill like a power vacuum that exists currently. But
Hutch, who do you trust more, Hakeem Jeffries or AOC?
In what sense? To win elections or what?
To be, let's say, to be a national candidate, AOC or Hakeem Jeffries?
That's honestly tough. I mean, probably AOC. Probably. But Hakeem Jeffries is like, he's very monotone. He's like literally like the least inspiring politician I've ever heard. He's kind of fun with alliteration from time to time, but he's just that's his thing, man. When he speaks, he kind of puts you to sleep. And He's like, yeah.
I mean, I
So-
agree, Hutch, descriptively. Like, we could see, like, a guy like Gavin Newsom, like, it might be, like, Newsom and Walz in the primary. Maybe those will be the top two candidates. And I could see, like, James Clyburn, Hakeem Jeffries, and, like, these kind of, like, moderate black politicians coming around and, like, really, like, whipping support for him in the primary, especially among black voters or something like that. You know, we saw that happen in, you know, in 2020. Biden was got that very strategic endorsement from James Clyburn. He ends up winning South Carolina, basically getting almost the entirety of the black vote and winning in the South, and ends up propelling him to winning the primary. That's obviously strategically true. I'm just saying that if we're thinking from a detached perspective, okay, like who would be the best kind of candidate to win? I think that somebody with very forceful rhetoric. It's one of the reasons, to be fair, why I've said like someone like Raphael Warnock, he could be like that perfect, almost like avatar-like figure where he has very forceful rhetoric. Obviously, he's very popular amongst black voters, being a Democratic senator, a black senator from the South, you know, former pastor in the Martin Luther King Church. And so, you know, I agree with that rhetoric in large part. I just think that that's more descriptively true. But if we're just like picking who we think would be the most optimal candidate in the general election, I think it's probably somebody like Walz or, you know, AOC or like one of these more progressively aligned people, because they're the ones that are more likely to run on progressive rhetoric and actually stick to it. In fact, that's one of the things that hurt Kamala, was she ran in 2020 as a fairly progressive candidate, you know, Medicare for all, you know, Green New Deal she was a co-sponsor on. She turns around in 2024 and tries to backpedal a lot of those positions, and it just looks kind of bad, you know?
Oh,
Hey,
straight away
Hutch,
from the
hey,
top
Hutch,
row.
Straight Arade's calling you out, man.
No,
All
she's
the-
right. She's right. I've cautioned the same thing when it came to Pete. She's absolutely right. Like, I love Pete. I think he's so sharp. I think he's like literally one of the best orators that we have in the party right now. But is he going to win in like a South Carolina primary? Like, is he going to do well with like black voters? I don't think so. Probably not. So like, I have serious concerns about him too. So I don't know if there's a contradiction there.
Concerning.
I mean,
Well,
which do you think it's going to
Sorry,
be? Do you
Aaron.
think it's going to be a
You thought you
potential?
were gonna own him.
You think it's going to be a potential candidate AOC, like convincing black voters to be more progressive, or do you think it's going to be demographic shifts? Because it's got
I
to be
think
one
she'll
of the
run.
two.
I think she'll run for Senate. I don't think she's going to run.
That's what
for-
I'm saying.
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to see her get more experience. I like
Yeah.
her a lot. I think she's one of the Democratic Party's strongest assets right now. But I'd like to see her go for senator or governor or like cut her
You'd
teeth a
rather
little
have
bit
Jerry
more.
Connolly, right? Run for the.
Yeah.
No.
I think I'd have to.
I'm pragmatic,
I think
not suicidal. There's a difference.
I think most likely the Congressional Black Caucus will kind of coalesce around, you know, by huge plurality, a single candidate. You know, that's candidates very likely to be more moderate. You know, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, people like that. I mean, it's not like, I don't think it's the case that black people are just like naturally like these incredibly cautious, moderate people. It's just that
but
for the
they're-
most part, the Congressional
typ-
Black Caucus is very moderate. Yeah.
Socially, black voters are typically more conservative than like your average median Democrat. That's just a fact.
But
That's just a political reality.
Can I ask a
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, that is true. But at the same time, like the moderates of the Democratic Party are still very, like the Congressional Black Caucus is progressive on like every conceivable social issue that we have in this country. They're very, very pro-gay rights. They're very pro-choice, things like that. It's really the economic issues. When I describe moderate amongst the Black Caucus, I'm really talking about those key economic issues for the most part. I mean, you know, things could change, obviously, like you said, in 28, but that's kind of what I would expect.
For what it's worth, I want you guys to be right. Like, I genuinely want you guys to be right. I want someone to come into the space and be disruptive and sort of like change these established trends. But when we look at every single primary contest over the last like fucking 50 years or whatever, this is the
I'm not
challenge
disagreeing.
that
Hutch, I'm not
progressives
saying-
have.
Descriptively,
right?
I already said though, descriptively, I think you're right that there's, and I said it right at the start of my little rant about AOC and stuff, that progressives has historically had an uphill battle when it comes to primary campaigns, especially on the national level. And I even referenced the black vote as well, that is a big challenge. Now, to be fair, progressives tend to do a lot better with Hispanic people, and obviously Hispanic people are getting older and they're higher propensity voters over time. So, you know, maybe that'll cancel out or whatever. But you know, I think that is a challenge for progressives going forward. But it certainly doesn't mean that it's like a fruitless exercise to kind of advocate for progressives in the primary. And it doesn't mean that a progressive wouldn't necessarily be a very strong candidate in the general election. I mean, I think that one of the reasons why Walz might be a little bit different is that Walz, by attaching himself to a national campaign, you know, primary voters in general are very, very, very influenced by just like straight name ID. And progressives historically have had like extremely poor name ID even Bernie running in 2020, you ask like how many people like know who Bernie Sanders is, especially amongst Democratic primary voters. It's still a surprisingly small percentage of people. And same thing with like even AOC, who's kind of a national politician. At least with Tim Walz, he might be coming in as a progressive who has not only sort of, this sort of relationship with the Bidens and with Kamala Harris, which might make him a little bit more popular within the Black community, but also just like that name idea itself, he might be starting out as at a less of a deficit than maybe your average progressive would in the primary.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the trend lines, 2016, I think, Bernie did as well as he did was because everybody else dropped out and he basically knew he wasn't going to win and he was trying to make a statement. Did even worse in 2020. And then, the country skews even more to the right in 2024. It doesn't seem like we're on track for a progressive insurgent candidate, but anything can happen. And yeah, again, there's a lot of volatility and uncertainty. And so that creates a certain X factor that maybe you could argue like introduces some opportunity for these progressive candidates to come in there and like, convince the voters that they should be the ones that directing the party. Yeah. But I'm skeptical. Like just
we're 2 years away from candidates even announcing that they're running, right? So we're very far away. The first primary is going to be in like almost full 3 years from now. So I mean, it's obviously a very long time from now, and things could certainly change. But
the midterms will be a good indicator of like where the winds are blowing. Like it could be the case that a lot of progressive candidates just sweep in elections all over the country right now. And if that's the case, I'll be happy to change my mind and say, you know what, there seems to be an appetite for progressive politics.
Yeah.
Well, folks, it is officially 5 minutes past the hour. We've been here for an hour and a half, and I just want to say I've had a really good time sharing this time with you, especially since I was gone last week. Sure. Next Wednesday, I will be moving into the new residence, so it's possible that I will be not available.
Wait,
Wednesday
no, you
night.
got to be here next week, though. You got to be here next week.
You're right. I don't know what I was thinking. Let me call the lawyer and the realtor and be like, hey, fuck you guys. We'll do this now. Like,
for the Live and Learn viewers, we're going to have a sitting United States representative join us for about 30 minutes. We're not going to tell you who. We'll keep it a mystery. And then Adam Mockler, I think, will also be joining us. And,
yeah.
And
Mockler would be more than adequate as a replacement for me if I can't make it. But yeah, that's going to be a double threat.
He's
that's
better than you. Yeah.
Bah, fuck, 3 times. Literally 3 times. That guy, at this point, I think he's getting close to almost lapping Luke, like, as far as subscribers go. He is killing it.
I mean, speaking of killing it, before we go, we got to give Pisco some flowers because you've been fucking killing it, bro. I haven't watched your Breaking Points appearance yet. I'm going to watch that tomorrow with the stream. Obviously, you fucking crushed it on Tim Pool. It's exciting to see you go places, buddy.
Appreciate it, bro.
He made Sauger into a little bitch.
I was gonna say, if, I noticed Sauger wasn't too eager to talk about his bullshit when Pisco was on the fucking call. That's all. That's what I noticed.
He was all getting up. He was like, he had that fucking suit on. He was at that pocket square. He was ready. Oh, this guy's a lawyer. Oh fuck. Oh, never mind. Yeah. Dude, did you see the debate that Sauger had with Crystal about the deportation? Like, that was unhinged. Yeah. He was like co-signing all that shit, but like looking straight down when Pisco was on stream, even though Pisco like was missing a key light or something. That was the darkest lighting I've ever seen. Yeah. You basically sat in the dark. You looked like a fucking Bond villain. We could just see your silhouette, but you killed it.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Hey, and Hutch, thank you so much. Did you have to get a haircut? Holy fuck.
Cut it all off, yeah.
Holy shit!
Did Hutch have a haircut? Pisco.
So I go to the.
We haven't talked about it. We didn't talk about it at all. We haven't talked about it at all.
I go to the barber yesterday and I decide I go to him and I say I want to do a high fade, but if I'm too bald and I can't pull it off and you can see better than me, don't do it. And he goes, yeah, no, we can make it work, and it didn't work. It was very.
But it looks good.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna grow out a beard. We'll compensate that way. But no, but going back to you, man, like it's exciting to see you getting out there and branching out and seemingly having like a commanding presence on these platforms, dude.
I appreciate it, brother. And shout out to everyone on Live and Learn. You guys have all been helpful. Hutch and Econoboy and Josiah, each of you like advice in terms of how I come across, advice in terms of, who to reach out to. And so it's all thanks to you guys in terms of helping me out and crafting, my direction. So appreciate it.
That's why I said, I mean, between your intellect, your good looks, they more than compensate for your personality, man. but we're also trying to get a Conaboy on Tim
Conaboy's got to
Pool.
be next. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got to go on Tim Pool, man.
That's true.
100p.
That's true. Look, I don't know if they want somebody who knows what they're talking about on that show. That's why they invited Pisco. Okay?
I was about to say, like, oh, okay, shot across the bow. No, I mean,
Wick is going to be on Tim Pool tomorrow
Oh,
debating.
what is going
lactoid.
on? I can't believe this.
So
okay?
he's debating lactoid on Ukraine, which ought to be great. I'll review
bro.
it.
Speaking of, when are you going to square up on lactoid on Tim Pool? A battle between
Oh, I would
the,
like that.
the
He
left wing
was-
lawyer and the right wing lawyer.
So
I
some
guess.
inside
Yeah.
baseball. I actually chose Good Logic. I wanted someone who was a lawyer, so I chose Good Logic as like my opponent. But Lactoid was a close number two. I almost picked Lactoid, but I wanted in New York. He was based out of New York, and we had a good rapport already, and so I wanted to do the more like known commodity. But he was close, and I would love to do with him.
What about who's that other right wing lawyer? Rakita Law. What about him?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to do with him.
Wait, is he not in jail?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Oh,
He's in a rough state of things from the last I saw. Hopefully he's doing better.
Bro, you know when you're
I hope he's
really
doing
gonna
better.
blow Pisco, you know what your big moment is, bro? When the fucking Blake Lively trial, because that's gonna be televised, I think, isn't it?
Oh yeah, so I am going to probably
gotta
try
do-
to do some content related to that, and
The 24/7, just
Bro,
do nothing but
that's
that.
it.
You'll
That's it.
quadruple.
Joanna's gonna help me with that. She's already the first person to tell me about this. Actually, a long time ago, she told me to do it, and so she's gonna help me with how I approach it.
Wait,
You
wait.
should- you should-
So I don't follow this. I don't follow the like. I'm a big pop culture geek, but like the scandal shit, I don't follow. Are we team Blake or team Justin?
I don't know. I
Oh.
just am getting comfortable with the facts. It sounds like it's pretty interesting situations though.
No, but dude, there were
You
so
might need
many
to take out a harder
channels.
position
There
than
were
that.
there were
Yeah.
so many channels that piggybacked off of the Johnny Depp thing, and it literally made their careers.
That
so,
was Rakita, wasn't it? That was
Yeah.
Rakita and Good Logic. Yeah.
yeah.
There you
So-
go, man.
I'm gonna do it probably, and yeah, shout out to Joanna Blonde Politics. Give her a follow, and she's gonna be helping me like conceptualize it.
It is going to be televised, right?
I think so. Yeah. Oh wait, is it in federal court? If it's in
don't
federal
think-
court,
I don't
might
know
be.
if it is.
if
I
it's in
don't
federal
think it
court, it
is.
might not be.
Well,
But I might just need to
if,
give like trial updates and stuff based on what
if
happens.
it is televised, you should literally stream every single minute of the trial. Is what I would advise.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think I'm
And then-
going to be honest with you, and I don't know shit about the law. So
Man, I can.
Right.
I remember. Actually, I don't even remember the year it happened, but I was desperate to escape the Johnny Depp. What's her name?
Amber Heard.
Amber Heard thing. Like, again, love all their, like, one of my favorite movies. I remember vividly. Do you guys remember? Now blanking on it. It's got Amber Heard in it. It was like a fucking 2008
Aquaman.
Pineapple
No.
Express.
No, 2008 fight movie. Fuck, it was he practices mixed
Fight Club.
martial art. No, not Fight Club. That was in the 90s.
Warrior.
Fuck me. What is
Roadhouse.
the
Movie where they fight.
Okay, so the characters are in high school, and it's like this new kid, and he wants to impress the girl.
High School
Oh,
Musical.
never back down. Apparently,
Never
is
back
what's
down.
going- yeah.
Thank you. Never back down. And then Drive Angry with Nicolas Cage, 2011. That was a classic. It's got William Fichtner in it. But yeah, like the drama stuff. Like I still don't know most of the facts about that particular case. So
I do. I
Did you
watched.
follow it?
Dude, don't get me started on that trial because I've got a lot of opinions on that
do
one.
you?
Got some hot
Dude,
takes.
Johnny, like, listen, I'm sympathetic to people with addiction. Like, I'm in recovery. I know, like, hella people in recovery. But it was crazy to watch, like a huge mob of people rally behind someone who was so clearly in like advanced stages of addiction. Like, there was a picture of him completely passed out drunk on his young daughter's birthday party, and he somehow came out like the good guy at the end of that trial. When the verdict came out, he was in a pub in England drinking beer and people were like clapping. It was insane. It blew my mind, but that's a topic for a different day, I guess.
Yeah, he was not a model boyfriend to Amber Heard from all the stuff that I saw. Very toxic relationship. But Anyway.
Well, besides us trying to get you onto Tim Pool, what else is going on in your world, Boy, content-wise?
Yeah, sure. So I actually released actually Progressive Victory. The organizers over there, they asked me to do a lecture on whatever I wanted. So I decided to give a talk about poverty and inequality. I actually uploaded that today on my channel. So if you want to see
are
a little
you pro or
presentation-
anti?
I'm actually taking the anti-poverty and inequality stance, which is
Playing
a
the
bit
devil's
bizarre.
advocate, are you?
True, that's true. But I gave about a 30-minute lecture, and they asked me a bunch of questions that I got uploaded today. And I've been really banging out a ton of articles, let's just say. If you want to learn about the economy from a overview perspective, go for it. I recently released an article about the best thing that you can do to eliminate wealth inequality. Your classic socialist option, public ownership. Okay, that's what that article is about. So read that if you're interested.
You definitely need to get on Tim Pool, man, because like you have a very calm demeanor, but you are a fucking killer in debate format. Your debate with Lactoid, I thought was
he's a
really
fucking,
well
like,
done.
sniper, man. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's such a formidable group. And Hutch, you're a pretty goddamn good debater too. So you should also go on Tim Pool real quick before I forget.
The fuck am I looking
don't
at?
put me on blast. Don't put me on blast. Don't put me on blast. Wait, don't put me on blast.
Really
Why
quick,
are you
really
doing
quick,
that?
am I
Wait, don't
looking
put me
at?
on blast.
really quick on
Are
the
you really gonna
weekly.
put me on blast?
Really quick on the
Wait.
weekly
Oh,
Patriot.
you're not gonna do
It's
that.
been a
I'll
few
leave the
weeks,
podcast.
asshole.
I'm leaving.
It more
Oh
like
my
more
God.
like no. Listen, you guys should subscribe to the Quarterly Patriot.
That is an amazing Vance meme right there. Wow.
The Quarterly Patriot. My God.
for real, like the Leap Year Patriot. By
Meanwhile,
Pisco.
who's actually been doing weekly articles? This guy. Okay,
Econoboy?
Econoboy.
He sure is. Let me find it here. That was funny. I enjoyed that. That was great.
Did you body Vosh, Boy? Did you have a debate with Vosh?
One of my earliest viral debates was I think I got the better of Vosh in a couple of conversations.
Wait, what?
He was invited. Vosh was invited to debate me a third time, and he politely declined. Now, to be fair to Vosh, I don't think he's scared of me. He honestly just doesn't do debates anymore. So,
Is this
he just
Why
doesn't do 'em.
Socialism from 3 years ago?
Fuck, I don't know. Yeah, it's been a while. But
Dude, I'm gonna go back and watch the classic. I'm gonna watch this on the stream, see how you did.
there we go. Go for it. Yeah, I think my other debate that got a lot of views was when I debated Rob Noor the first time for 5.5 hours. Let's just say this. Here's what I will say.
That's
Fucking
an
Martin
express- that's an
Scorsese of debates here.
No,
I had-
that's a regular for fucking Pisco and Rob Noor.
Listen, I had two debates on economics. One with two with Rob Noor, two with Andrew Wilson. They have not debated me on those topics since, and that's all I will say.
Listen, I love you, but I'm not watching a debate that's longer than the extended version of Return of the King. That's just
You
where I'm
got
at
a
with that.
name drop from Andrew Wilson in our
I
Tim
did.
Pool debate.
Oh, really?
in a
What
very-
was my name drop?
He mentioned you in a flattering way. He said something like, he goes, I know you're good friends with Econoboy, very, very smart. And he would say, and then I forget whatever point he made, but he was actually appealing to your intellect there. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, look, I do think, I don't claim to be the best debater when it comes to corruption in the FBI or fucking, money in politics or whatever. But listen, if you want to play the game, get me in an economics conversation. That's my wheelhouse. Is all
That's
I'm
why
saying.
they call you
my goddamn name
Econoboy.
is Econoboy. Exactly.
That's why they call. I get it now.
Yo, Noah Smith actually just retweeted you a little while ago.
That's true. One of my classic economic takes about Trump shitting on the floor and then cleaning it up. That was a recent tweet that seems to be doing pretty well. But yeah, anyway, guys, look, I've been pumping out the content is what I'm saying. And yeah, it'd be nice to get on Tim Pool. I mean, I don't know. It seems not that hard to get on Tim Pool. So I guess I need a debate partner. I need to find someone to talk to.
You and Hutch should go on.
No, I'm too nervous for that kind of a thing. I have a nervous
No.
disposition.
Bro, honestly, I think
I could have sworn you've been on Tim Pool. I'm just like made this up in my head that Hutch had been on Tim Pool before. I don't know why.
No.
Dude, let me tell you about the brass ones on Hutch, because we were at a Trump rally and we were having a good old time, like establishing rapport with these MAGA cultists, and fucking Hutch comes out and 6'4", 6'5" Hutch, and then just drops a grenade in there. I can't even remember what you said. The most provocative question.
I
blew
said
the
I'm
whole
MAGA
fucking
curious.
thing up.
I said, I'm MAGA curious. Can you, but I have concerns about Trump saying he was going to terminate the Constitution. And then some guy looked like he was going to fucking beat the shit out of me for saying that.
It's like, how dare you say, like, they just turned, like, it was like in unison, all 10,000 of them just turned and stared like glassy eyed at Hutch, and we barely made it out. Yeah.
Listen, if you guys never go to another MAGA rally, just invite me. I'll be your big burly white guy. You know, I can translate for you if it's in Texas.
Aren't you a tall man as well? Aren't you like 6'4" or something?
6'4". I wish, Hutch. I'm a lowly 6'1".
Okay.
But you know, I could carry Josiah in my arms at the rally, and that would be not only very adorable.
Do you have a
but I think
pocket? Do you have a pocket on your shirt? I'll just
I
hang
do
out
right
there.
here.
Right
That's
there.
true.
That'll
we
be,
need
that'll
to-
be my carriage.
We should organize. I don't know. We're all scattered all over the fucking country. We should organize an in-person live and learn at a Trump rally or something.
Listen,
I don't know.
when I move into the new place and get the studio set up, you guys pop out over there. Yeah, it'll be a good time. Yeah.
You're gonna have a whole studio in your house, Josiah?
No, fuck no. But we've got it like
Oh.
like right now, kind of like this. I call it the studio because like we've got a spare room at the apartment, and it's like doubles as both like my studio here, and then like this is my personal setup. But this time we'll have just like an extra room where I can put the studio by itself, which will be
Set
better
up
for
a
my mental
conference
health.
table, get 3 or 4,
not that big.
SMBs. Oh, come on.
I don't know about
Come
a conference
on,
table.
Josiah.
We will be crowded around my secret lab standing desk. We'll just be all like shoulder to shoulder, like, hey guys, bonding.
Dude, we didn't even talk about libs of TikTok being deputized as an ICE deport.
The whole LARPing thing is bullshit. Christy Nome with that fucking gun, like
Accidentally
aimed at that
pointed.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I feel like Asmongold is for sure going to get invited by Tom Homan to go on like a deportation run.
That's going to be an interesting. Like, I don't know much about Asmongold, but which of those two is creepier to you, Tom Homan or Asmongold?
Oh, Asmongold is.
I'd say.
I mean,
Asmongold.
yeah, I don't know. Have you seen? It's pretty bad. There's a.
He doesn't even like take showers or clean his apartment. He said.
We'll put it this way. He said he used a rat as an alarm clock at one point in his life because there was a dead rat like on his desk, and when the sun would raise high enough to actually like shine its light on the rat, it would create an odor that was very unpleasant, and it would wake him up. So to give you a sense of like how that guy lives.
What is that fucking? Was it? What is it when you pass out they break it in front of your nose? Is Narcan or something like that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Smelling salts.
I think that's a smelling
whatever.
salt. Yeah.
Yeah, like exactly with dead rat.
Yeah, if Asmongold has made $20 million from his streaming career, he's probably spent maybe 30,000 of it or something. He seems
Literally,
to live a
yeah,
very
literally.
austere lifestyle, which I guess is respect. That's respect to him for that. But no, conservatives are so much better at propaganda than Democrats. Like they do shit like this, and it just like seems to work with their base. You know, like Democrats.
What would
seem to
you?
really
What,
get better at
okay,
this.
under the next Democratic administration, what field trip would you like to join?
The Democrats should do a field trip to the Social Security office and talk to all the different benefit claimants and be like, "How much does this help you? You know, isn't this such a good program?" They should do the same thing at They should do the same thing at every conceivable welfare program. Tim Walz, like people like that, you should go to schools that are giving out free lunch and be like, how do you like this? Just like with a bunch of kids and just do a little propaganda video like that. I do think also we need to take a page out of Vladimir Putin's handbook. Okay. Just like get on TRT, get on steroids, work out, become a big burly, at least like strong dad bod looking dude, and then shirtless pics on horses. Okay, Democrats really need to get on that. If you're a woman, I suppose a shirtless pic wouldn't be the best idea. Maybe have a big battle axe that you carry around, and maybe that could be something that you could do. I mean, just anything to really propagandize to the masses our strength. I think that's what Democrats should focus on. I know guns as well. Pictures of you holding guns, going hunting. Places like that, Democrats need to really lean into that stuff, and you need to look the part. Okay, you can't go to a hunting trip, Gavin, with fucking Crocs on or some shit. You got to really get your wardrobe right if you're going to do something like this. So
They need to get in good with the gamers too, man. Like actually have a Path of Exile 2 character that you didn't boost. And
dude, Kai Cenat's over here accidentally doing Chinese propaganda. Okay, we need to get on that.
No. That's I Show Speed, isn't it?
Wait, who am I thinking
You
of?
fucking racist.
You're-
Everybody's thinking it.
Did you?
Wait, what?
Did you see
Wait,
the
wait,
fucking?
wait, I thought that guy's name was Kai Cenat. I Show Speed. I've never heard this name.
Oh, it's because they look the same. Is that what you're saying?
Okay,
Did you see the fucking cyberbullying
Clip it.
that Elon got from
Yeah, that
his
was
stream.
fucking crazy. Did you see him pretend that his connection dropped when it was
No,
very
I heard about it. I heard about it.
So
but
he
that's
ends
funny.
his stream by going up, connection dropped, but his game, the server's still active, his stream is still live. Like he was getting spammed like with people saying, basically KYS and, you're going to ruin the country like you ruined all your marriages and you're going to die alone. Like really brutal. And then at one point his character dies to like a really early boss in the game. I don't play that game, but apparently it was a really early boss. And at some point towards the end, he just goes, "Oh no, my connection ended." But just like very clearly on the screen, he was still connected to the server. It would have shown like a message saying you were disconnected. Like his stream would have cut off. And then, yeah, he just rage quit the stream after that. It was fucking amazing, actually.
That's
Elon is a very weird guy. Let's just say.
deeply.
Hassan recently interviewed his daughter. I didn't see that myself, but I knew that
the
did
one who
happen.
hates his guts. I probably
Yeah.
had
One
to
who
narrow that
hates
one
his
down.
gut. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And I don't know how that went, but I thought that was pretty interesting. Maybe we could get Elon Musk's daughter on this podcast.
I heard Kara
Doubt
Swisher
it.
say, is her name Vivian? Am I making that up?
Yes.
Vivian?
Yes,
That
yes.
Vivian's really funny. So I guess she got all of her sense of humor and it skipped a generation.
Yeah, it's
So-
hard to keep track of who the fuck all these moms are of his children. I don't know who is Vivian's mom.
Bro, what about the new one? The new
Yeah,
one
yeah,
who is a psycho.
I mean, well, you didn't have to. I mean, that's pretty.
No, have you seen her on
Cool.
Piers Morgan? She is like deeply unwell. Like, I think her name is.
Ashley St. Clair.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Listen, if you agree to have an IVF child with Elon Musk, you're probably.
We don't know his IVF.
It wasn't
do we?
IVF.
Yeah.
It was not. No fucking way was it IVF. All
'Cause
those
he was-
leaked text messages.
He was gooning in her
suggested-
DMs. Yeah.
Yeah. It was so fun.
Hey,
All right.
Econoboy, Hassan said that free trade is bad. What do you
No,
think?
did he? Well, I mean, some socialists take the view that free trade is bad because it's, exploitative labor practice and things like this. But really, I mean, Marx had a quote a long time ago where Marx talked about, protectionism is just protecting domestic capitalists, right? So you can kind of go either way on whether or not free trade is good or bad. Look, at the end of the day, I think that all these smaller countries, they want to climb the value chain. Part of doing that is getting in a lot of export dollars, getting in dollars from exporting a lot of goods, and then investing in more elaborate mechanical equipment and capital before. I mean, this is the story of pretty much literally every single society's development is like, how do they get the dollars? How do they get elaborate mechanical equipment? How do they increase worker productivity such that they can command higher wages? And part of that is building out export sectors and climbing the value chain kind of one generation at a time. And so, I think that's the way that you develop countries. Now, notice that's not a very free market way to develop, right? I'm talking about state industrial policy and state ownership. But I'm also talking about relatively forward-facing free trade policy. It's all about the institutions and how you circulate money in your society, not necessarily closing yourself off from foreign capital. Look at Botswana. Botswana is one of the most egalitarian. Don't get me fucking wrong. Botswana is not an immensely egalitarian place, but amongst sub-Saharan African countries, it's one of the most egalitarian, one of the richest. And in part, that was because Botswana embraced foreign capital and distributed the gains from foreign capital and gains from their domestic industries to the population at large, investing in education and, more elaborate industrial processes. And so, we on the left shouldn't close our minds off from free trade because of fears of worker exploitation. Rather, we should just try to engender sort of international labor institutions to address that kind of thing, while at the same time taking advantage of, the natural gains from free trade. Those are my thoughts.
Well, I hate to interrupt your thoughts, but I've got to call it out. I've got a hard out. So listen, it was fun, and I hope to see you all next week. But if not, most of Live and Learn will be here alongside Adam Mockler and an unnamed mystery congressperson, Democrat.
Lauren Boebert.
Dude,
I said
Lauren Boebert,
Democrat.
I'd love to
That
have
did-
her on the show.
Lauren Boebert
She's
is
going to be
actually
announcing
officially-
that she's
Yep.
changing parties. Yeah.
Fuck, you gave it away.
Live and Learn exclusive. Better be here, you guys. It's going to be great.
It's
All
true.
right, folks. See ya.